Hey guys, tonight we are going to step back in time. Not to a grand battlefield or a royal court, but to the grimy, torch-lit alleyways of Tudor London. We're about to explore one of the most essential, disgusting, and surprisingly well-paid jobs of the era. This is a journey into a world where holding your breath wasn't just a party trick, but a genuine survival skill. Frankly, if you were really there, you probably wouldn't make it through the first night. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments what city you're listening from, and what time it is for you. It's always a quiet thrill to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun is setting over London, and you're watching it happen from a damp stone step near Chepside. The light, thick and golden like honey, spills over the timber-framed houses, making their leaning gables and crooked rooftops seem almost charming. For a moment, you can almost forget the smell. Almost. The day's heat has baked the city's signature perfume into the very air you breathe, a complex blend of wood smoke from 1,000 chimneys, the sweat of horses and humans, roasting meat from a nearby cookshop, and underneath it all, the ever-present, sour tang of waste. You pull the thin wool of your tunic tighter around you. Though it's not for warmth, it's a useless gesture of self-preservation, a flimsy barrier against the world. You came to London a month ago, a hopeful provincial with stories of golden streets ringing in your ears. What you found were streets paved with mud, cobblestones, and animal droppings. The gold, it seems, is kept firmly in the pockets of others. Your own pockets are so empty they feel like holes stitched together. The gnawing in your belly has become a familiar, dull ache. You watch the city's rhythm change as dusk deepens. Apprentices rush to put up the shutters on their masters' shops. The street cries of vendors selling everything from hot pies to fresh oysters begin to fade. A wealthy merchant, his robes trimmed with fur, strides past with his wife, their noses held high as if they could physically rise above the stench of the common folk. You are part of that stench. You are invisible to them. This is the time of day when the cities to have become most apparent. The respectable world is retreating indoors, barring their doors and lighting their candles. But another world is just beginning to stir. The world of the night. It's then that you overhear them. Two men, their faces smudged with soot from a day of labor, are huddled near a water pump, their voices low and conspiratorial. You're not trying to eavesdrop. Not really. But their words drift over. They're talking about a job, about coin. And the numbers they're murmuring make you sit up straight, the ache in your stomach momentarily forgotten. They speak of sixpence, maybe even a shilling for a single night's work. A shilling. That's more than a skilled carpenter or a mason makes in a day of hard, respectable labor. It's a small fortune. It's the difference between starving and eating for a week. But would you do it? Tom, one man asks, his voice a mix of awe and disgust. Could you stomach it? The other man spits on the ground. Not for all the tea in China. If we had tea in China, that is, he laughs a short, sharp laugh. To be a gong farmer, they say the stint never leaves you, clings to your soul. Gong farmer. The name is strange, almost rural. You picture fields and plows, but the way they say it, with such revulsion, tells you it's nothing of the sort. The word gong, you've learned it in your short time here, is old slang. It comes from a word that means to go or to walk, and it's what people call the place you go to relieve yourself. A privy, a suspect, a jakes. Your mind slowly, horribly, puts the pieces together. The men continue their talk, confirming your dawning horror. They speak of men who work only between 9 at night and 5 in the morning, as decreed by law, because the work is too foul to be conducted in the light of day. They are the city's necessary secret. The men who descend into the brick-lined pits beneath the city's homes and inns. The pits where all the human waste of London accumulates, and empty them. bucket by bucket. Historians still debate whether Tudors were simply nose-blind to the constant, overwhelming smells of their world, or if they lived in a state of perpetual, low-level disgust. Listening to these men, you get your answer. There are levels to this olfactory hell, and the Gong Farmer operates in the deepest circle. You learn a new term, the raker. These are the city's daytime sanitation crew. They go around with carts, carrying the surface-level filth from the streets, the discarded food, the edible matter, the general muck that collects in the central channel of the road, known as the kennel. Their job is dirty and poorly paid, but it's a public, daytime affair. It's nothing compared to the midnight trade of the Gong Farmer, who deals with the concentrated essence of the city's digestion. That is a different beast entirely. The two laborers wander off, their conversation turning to ale and dice, leaving you alone with your thoughts. The sky is now a deep, bruised purple. The first stars are pricking the haze above the city. The choice, which wasn't even a choice an hour ago, now sits in the pit of your stomach like a cold, heavy stone. Dignity, or survival to remain an invisible, starving man in the daylight, or to become a reviled, but wealthy, creature of the night. You look down at your chap. Empty hands. You can almost feel the phantom weight of a shilling in your palm. And for the first time, you find yourself wondering where a man might go to find a Gong Farmer. The question hangs in the cool night air, a silent query aimed at the city itself. Where does a man go to find a Gong Farmer? You push yourself up from the stone step, your joints cracking in protest. The hunger, sharp and insistent, is your guide. Information, like everything else in London, has a price. But sometimes, that price is just a bit of shared humanity in a dingy corner. You make your way toward the warm, yellow light spilling from the doorway of a nearby alehouse. The air inside is thick enough to chew. It's a chaotic symphony of shouting, laughter, the clatter of wooden cups on rough-hewn tables, and the pervasive smell of stale beer, sweat, and wet wool. Sawdust, stained dark with spills and grime, covers the floor. This is a place where a man like you can disappear into the crowd. You spend one of your last few pennies on a cup of small ale. It's watery and bitter, but it's wet, and it gives you a reason to linger. You scan the room. Your eyes land on an old man sitting alone in a corner, nursing his drink as if it holds the secrets of the universe. His face is a roadmap of a hard life. His knuckles are swollen, and he has the weary, patient look of someone who has seen it all. He is your target. You take a breath, walk over, and in a voice barely above a whisper, you ask him your question. You don't use the term Gong Farmer. You're more cautious. You ask where a man, a desperate man, might find work that no one else wants. The kind of work that pays well because it's unpleasant. The old man looks up, his eyes two cloudy puddles. First, there's suspicion. He probably thinks you're a city official, a snooper looking to enforce some obscure regulation. But he sees the threadbare state of your tunic, the hollows in your cheeks. The suspicion melts away, replaced by a slow, knowing smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Unpleasant work. Yeah, he rasps, his voice gravelly. There's plenty of that. But you mean the work, the night's oil men, the Gong Farmerist. He says the word with a strange mix of derision and respect. You're either brave or a fool, or just hungry enough not to care which. You just nod, your throat too dry to speak. The pay is real, he continues, leaning in slightly, his voice dropping. Don't let anyone tell you different. A shilling a night. Sometimes more, if it's a deep pit or a rich man's house. You know what a shilling is. He doesn't wait for an answer. A roofer. A good one. He's lucky to see 8 pence for a full day's sweat. A labourer in the docks might get 4. You'd earn 3 times a labourer's wage while he's snoring in his bed. The numbers confirm what you heard. It's a life-changing amount of money. The old man takes a sip of his ale. They call them Gong Farmers because they harvest the gong, he says, making air quotes with his gnarled fingers. Gone for the pretty. See, like a farmer harvests his fields. It's a pretty name for the foulest job God ever saw fit to invent. This is a key piece of the puzzle. The name itself is a kind of grim joke, a way to professionalize the unthinkable. He tells you about the rules. The law is brutally clear. You can only work between the hours of 9 at night and 5 in the morning. If you're caught hauling your cart through the streets, even 1 minute past 5, you can be arrested and brought before the magistrate. The fines are steep. It's not about protecting you, it's about protecting the delicate noses and sensibilities of the daylight world. But the money, you whisper. What can a man do with that money? This is where the old man's certainty wavers, and you hear the hint of a much larger, more complicated truth. Historians still argue about the true social standing of the Gong Farmer. Were they wealthy pariahs, forever trapped by the stench of their profession, or could their money eventually wash them clean? The coin, the old man sighs. It buys you food, it buys you a roof, it buys you good boots. But respect, that's a different currency. He leans in again. I've heard tales. Some say they live like hermits, saving every penny to buy a plot of land far from London, where no one knows their name or their trade. They give their children a new start. Others say it's a curse. The smell never leaves you. Not your clothes, not your skin, not your reputation. You can have a purse full of silver, but the baker will still serve you last. Holding his breath, he tells you of a strange, unpopular law from a few decades back, where King Henry VI actually tried to fix the price for cleaning a privy at a standard rate. The idea that the king himself had to legislate the cost of emptying toilets is one of those bizarre details that makes you realize you're reliving in a very strange world. You finish your ale, the bitter liquid doing little to calm the twisting in your gut. You feel a strange mix of terror and excitement. The old man seems to read your mind. If you're still set on it, he says, his voice softening with a touch of pity, go to the Hog's Head over on Whitecouple Street. Ask for a man named Silas. Don't say I sent you. He describes him a big man with a broken nose and hands the size of shovels. He's the one who runs a crew. He's the gatekeeper to that world. You thank the old man, leaving your empty cup on the table. Stepping back out into the night. The air, which had seemed so foul before, now feels refreshingly clean. The promise of a shilling sings a siren's song in your mind, loud enough to drown out the warnings. Food, a warm bed, a future. You walk east, your steps more purposeful now. The leaning houses seem to watch you, their dark windows like eyes. You are heading towards a new life. A life conducted in darkness. A life paid for in filth. You find the Hog's Head, its sign creaking in the breeze. It looks even rougher than the last place. You stand before the door, taking one last breath of the cool, clean night air. Then, you push it open and step inside. The Hog's Head is a cavern of noise and shadows, making the last alehouse feel like a church service. The air is so thick with pipe smoke, it looks like a permanent fog has settled indoors. Here, the patrons aren't just weary laborers, they're sailors with foreign tattoos. Burly men who look like they load cargo for a living, and a few shadowy figures in the corners who look like they unload it. No questions asked. You feel a dozen pairs of eyes flicker over you as you enter, assessing you in a single, dismissive glance. You're this small fry. Nothing to worry about, nothing to care about. You scan the crowd, your heart thumping a nervous rhythm against your ribs. You're looking for a giant with a broken nose. It doesn't take long. In the back, sitting at a table by himself, is a man who seems to have been carved from a block of wood and then beaten with a mallet. He's immense. His shoulders strain the seams of his leather jerkin, and his hands, resting around a pewter tankard, are indeed the size of small shovels. A deep, jagged scar bisects one eyebrow and continues down the bridge of his nose, which is flattened and pushed to one side. That has to be Silas. Gathering every scrap of courage you possess, you reach through the throng, the smell of unwashed bodies. Cheap gin. and frying onions is overpowering. As you approach his table, the noise around you seems to fade into a low hum. You feel as if you're walking into the lion's den. You stop a few feet from him, waiting to be acknowledged. He doesn't look up. He just stares into his tankard, motionless, for a full minute. You just stand there, feeling more foolish with every passing second. Finally, you clear your throat. "Are you Soilish?" you ask, your voice sounding thin and weak. His head moves slowly, an inch at a time, until his eyes lock onto yours. They are small, dark, and utterly devoid of warmth. "Who's asking?" he rumbles, his voice like stones grinding together. I'm looking for work," you stammer. "The night work." A flicker of something amusement, perhaps, or contempt crosses his face. He gestures with his massive head to the empty stool opposite him. You take it. The wood is greasy to the touch. He takes a long, slow swallow from his tankard, his eyes never leaving yours. "Another one," he says to his drink. They wash up like driftwood, thin, hungry, and full of stupid ideas. He sets the tankard down with a heavy thud. "You know what this work is. Boy, you think it's just holding a bucket and getting rich." You shake your head. "I know it's hard. I know it's foul." Foul, he lets out a short, bark-like laugh. Foul as a pigsty after a rainstorm. This. He leans forward, and for the first time, you catch a faint, sour undertone on his breath that isn't gin. It's the smell of his trade, a ghost that haunts him even here. This is the bowels of the city, literally. This is the sin, the sickness, the waste of 100,000 souls, while stewing in a brick pot. You breathe it, you touch it, you're swimming in it for 8 hours straight, and it can kill you. He lays out the rules of this midnight contract, far more brutally than the old man did. "This isn't just a job, it's a form of indenture. You work for me," he growls. "My crew. We get the contracts from the landlords. Rich ones. Mostly. The poor, they just dig a hole in the garden. But a rich man, a nobleman, a guildhall, they have proper cesspits. Deep ones, some have been filling for 20 years. He explains the economics. You don't get paid by the hour. You get paid by the job. The crew splits a fee set by him, the master Gong Farmer. He takes the largest cut. Of course, he's the one who negotiates with the property owners, who owns the carts and the barrels, who greases the palms of the night watchman to look the other way if a job runs late. A shilling a night is the promise. But only if the work is done. No work, no pay. Sick your problem. Injured your problem. This reveals a hidden layer of the profession. It wasn't just individual operators. It was often organized into small, tightly controlled crews. A microeconomy with its own bosses and hierarchies. Some historians even suggest these master gong farmers could become quite influential figures in the underworld. Their wealth and control over a vital, if disgusting, service giving them a strange kind of power. And the rules? Silas continues, ticking them off on his thick fingers. Rule 1, you do what I say. No questions. Rule 2, you don't steal. I don't mean from me. I mean from the pits. You frown, confused, steal from a cesspit. His eyes narrow. You'd be surprised what falls down a privy hole. Rings, coins, knockets, a drunkard fumbling for his trousers. Anything you find belongs to the crew. It goes into a pot, and we split it at the end of the month. Anyone caught holding out. He lets the thread hang in the air, unfinished but perfectly clear. This is the origin of the golden rumors. The idea that you could find treasure in the muck. It wasn't a myth, but it was strictly controlled. Rule 3, he says, his voice dropping lower. You don't talk. You don't talk about the work. You don't talk about who we work for. You don't talk about the money to anyone. Your mouth stays shut. We work in the dark, and we live in the shadows. The moment people start noticing you, Start asking questions about where your money comes from. That's when the trouble starts. He stares at you, his gaze pinning you to the stool. So, I ask you again. You think you can handle it, the stink that makes you vomit? The dirt. The filth that gets under your nails and stays there for a week, the fact that every decent person in this city will cross the street to avoid you, you still want this job. The outhouse noise, the smells. The faces all blur into a meaningless background. There is only this man and his question. The hunger in your stomach gives its answer before you do. You look him straight in the eye, trying to project a confidence you absolutely do not feel. Yes, you say. Silas studies your face for a long moment. He seems to be weighing your desperation against your scrawny frame. Finally, he gives a slow, almost imperceptible nod. Be behind this tavern at sundown tomorrow. Don't be late. And for God's sake, wear clothes you're willing to burn. He dismisses you with a wave of his hand, turning his attention back to his tankard. The audience is over. You stand up, your legs feeling unsteady. You've done it. You have a job. You have a contract, sealed not with ink, but with a gravelly voice and a threat in a smoky pub. As you walk out, you feel a chill that has nothing to do with the night air. You have just sold your days for a life in the dark. Sundown the next day finds you exactly where you were told to be, in the narrow, rubbish-strewn alley behind the Hog's Head. The last rays of sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, a beautiful sight that feels like a farewell to the world of light. You're wearing your only other set of clothes, a patched-up shirt and threadbare breeches that were already on their last legs. Burning them won't be much of a loss. A large, hulking cart stands in the alley, its wooden sides stained dark with age and things you don't want to think about. A weary-looking horse is already harnessed to it, occasionally stamping a hoof or shaking its head, jingling the leather harness. This is your new chariot. It smells faintly of sour earth and ammonia. Silas is there, of course, limping beside the cart like a statue, but you are not alone. 2 other men are with you. They are to be your crewmates, your brothers in crime. One is a man perhaps twice your age, with a gaunt face and a cough that rattles his thin frame. He introduces himself as Arthur. He doesn't meet your eye, just stares at a point somewhere over your shoulder. The other is a lad much older than you, broad-shouldered and quiet, who grunts his name as John. There are no handshakes, no pleasantries, just a shared, unspoken understanding of the misery to come. Silas wastes no time. He points to a collection of objects laid out on a piece of dirty canvas on the ground. Your tools, he grunts. Learn them. Your life might depend on it. This is your initiation into the practicalities of the trade. The tools are brutally simple, almost primitive. There are several large wooden buckets, reinforced with iron bands. You lift one, it's heavy even when empty. There are coils of thick, rough rope. There's a crude, long-handled shovel with a wide, flat blade, perfect for scooping, and there's a smaller, hoe-like tool with a long handle, for scraping and agitating. This, Silas says, picking up a bucket, is your best friend. You will fill it, I will lift it. He gestures to a simple wooden tripod with a pulley attached to the top, which currently lies on its side. We set that over the pit. You go down. You fill the bucket. You shout "haul," and we pull it up. You fill it again. We do this until the pit is empty. Understand? You nod. Your throat dry. The simplicity of it is terrifying. Then he picks up what looks like a small, covered lantern. Your light, he says, but you will be careful with it. He fixes you with a deadly serious look. The pit, it breathes. This is the first time you hear about the true, insidious danger of the job, beyond the drowning and the disgust. He explains, in his blunt way, the concept of damp. It's what they call the foul air in the pits. Historians know this as a combination of gases, primarily methane and hydrogen sulfide, released by the decomposing waste. These gases could displace oxygen, suffocating a man in minutes. Worse, they were flammable. A naked flame in the wrong pit, Silas says, his voice slow, and the whole thing goes wump. The pit will belch fire. It'll cook you from the inside out. We test it first. We lower a candle down on a rope. If the flame grows, the air is foul. If it goes out, the air is deadly. We only go down if the candle burns steady. The casual way he describes this life or death test is chilling. A flickering candle flame is the only thing standing between you and a fiery or suffocating end. It's a piece of chillingly practical, pre-scientific safety protocol. The knowledge wasn't academic, it was learned through fatal trial and error. He shows you how to tie a specific knot, the bowline, to secure a rope around your waist. Arthur will hold your safety line, he says, nodding towards the older, toughy man. If you get dizzy, if you feel faint, you tug twice on the rope. 2 tugs. We haul you out. Don't be a hero. The damp can take you in a breath. This mention of a safety line is a small but significant detail. It shows that despite the brutal nature of the work, there were systems in place. They were a team, and their survival depended on trusting each other. Whether this trust was born of fellowship or simple economic necessity is a question historians still ponder. It was likely a bit of both. Finally, he points to a stack of large, empty wooden barrels on the cot. Once the buckets come up, we dump them in there, he explains. When the barrels are full, we take the cart to the laced ore. That's the dumping ground. Then we come back for the next job, or we go home. The whole process is a grim, efficient assembly line of filth. You, the turnbroacher, or delver, are the one who goes into the pit. The others are the lifters and haulers. Silas is the master, the overseer. Everyone has a role. Arthur, finally speaking, rasps a piece of advice without looking at you. Chew on a piece of juniper root. Lead helps with the smell a bit. John, the quiet one, just grunts in agreement. It's a tiny nugget of trade craft, a piece of folk wisdom passed down in the dark. You have no juniper root, of course. You'll have to face the stench undefended. As the last of the light fades, Silas claps his hands together, a sound like two planks of wood striking. All right, time to earn your keep. Our first job is a wool merchant's place off Gracekirth Street. Big house, deep pit. Been 10 years since it was last cleaned. It's a rich one. He grins, a terrifying sight in the gloom. Tonight, you'll be wading in gold. Boy, just not the shiny kind. He kicks the canvas of tools. Load him up, he commands. You, also. And John moved to obey. The clatter of wooden iron echoing in the narrow alley. Your new life has begun. The cart groans and squeaks as it rolls over the uneven cobblestones. You're not riding, you're walking alongside it. A silent, shadowy procession moving through a sleeping city. The horse's hooves are a muffled sea-lapping sound. The only noise besides Arthur's persistent cough and the grumble of the wooden wheels. London at night is a different beast entirely. The familiar landmarks are transformed into monstrous silhouettes against the faint glow of the moon. The leaning houses seem to whisper secrets to each other across the narrow streets. Every dark alleyway feels like a gaping mouth, ready to swallow you whole. The city is supposed to be under curfew, with all decent folk indoors. But you see flickers of life in the margins. A lone watchman, the Charlies as they're nicknamed, walks his slow, plodding route, his lantern swinging casting dancing shadows. He sees your cart, sees Silas leading the horse, and gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. A coin has likely changed hands earlier. This is a city that runs on quiet, illicit understandings. You pass a tavern, still spilling raucous noise into the street, a pocket of defiance against the enforced slumber. Finally, you turn onto Gracekirth Street. It's a wealthier thoroughfare. The houses are larger, built of stone and thick timber, with glazed windows that glimmer in the moonlight. You stop at the back of a particularly grand one. In a small, walled courtyard, the main house is dark and silent. The merchant and his family are asleep, blissfully unaware of the foul work about to be done directly beneath them. The air in the courtyard already smells different. It's heavier, with a pungent, ammoniac bite that catches in the back of your throat. This is the source. Silas points to a large, flat stone set into the ground near the back wall of the house. There she is, he says, his voice a low whisper, the privy shelf. Working with grim efficiency, Silas and John use iron bars to pry the heavy stone slab aside. The moment it moves, a sigh of foul air escapes. An invisible monster released from its tomb. It hits you like a physical blow. It's a thick, gag-inducing stench of decay, 1,000 times worse than the general miasma of the city. It's the smell of concentrated humanity at its least pleasant. You instinctively recoil, gagging, your eyes watering. Arthur claps you hard on the back. Breathe through your mouth. Lad, he coughs, and get used to it. Beside you, John is completely unfazed. He works with a stoic, practiced calm, as if he were merely stacking firewood. You force yourself to stand your ground, to breathe, to fight the primal urge to run. This is the first test, and you know it. The clock on a nearby church begins to chime. It's a deep, resonant bell that rolls over the rooftops. 1, 2, 3. It counts out 9 strokes. The official start of your working hours. The witching hour. For you, it's the tolling of the bell that signals the beginning of your shift. It's a strange inversion of the normal world, where bells call people to prayer or to mark the end of a day's labor. For you, it's the factory whistle. Right. Silas says as the last chime fades. Let's test the dam. He takes a small tallow candle, lights it, and fixes it to the end of a long rope. He gives the other end to John and slowly, carefully, lowers the tiny flame into the black square of the opening. You all lean over, watching the flickering light descend. It's a tiny, brave star sinking into a black, foul-smelling galaxy. It goes down 5 feet, then 10. The flame wavers slightly, but it stays lit. It goes deeper, 15 feet. The pit is deeper than you imagine. The rope goes slack. The candle has reached the surface. The flame burns steadily. Good air. Silas grunts. Though the term feels laughably inaccurate. Safe enough. He sounds almost disappointed. It's a chilling thought. But you realize that a dangerous pit, one filled with fat, flammable air, might mean a higher fee, a bonus for the risk. The economics of this job are woven into every aspect of it, even life and death. Whether this candle test was a universally adopted practice or something only more experienced crews did is a matter of some debate among historians. Some accounts of sanitation work from the period mention the dangers of asphyxiation, but specific safety procedures like this are rarely detailed in official records. They were part of the unwritten, oral tradition of the trade, passed from master to apprentice in hushed tones in courtyards just like this one. Now, it's your turn. Your stomach clenches into a tight, cold knot. Silas and John set up the wooden tripod over the hole, the pulley squeaking as they test it. Arthur approaches you with a length of rope. Arms up, he rasps. He ties the bowline knot Silas showed you securely around your chest, under your arms. This is your safety line, your only connection to the world above. Silas hands you the small, covered lantern. Don't drop it, is all he says. You take the lantern. Your hand is shaking. You look at your crewmates. Silas, the impulsive giant. John, the silent workhorse. Arthur, the coughing ghost. This is your team. Your fate is in their hands. You sit on the edge of the pit, your legs dangling into the darkness. The stench rises up, wrapping around you like a shroud. You can feel the cold radiating from the brick-lined walls. All right, lad, Silas says, his voice a bit softer now. Down you go. Remember, 2 tugs if you feel faint. Don't be proud. You take one last deep breath of the relatively clean night air. Then, gripping the main rope, you push off the edge and begin your descent into the blackness. The world of moonlight and stars disappears, replaced by the suffocating, stinking dark of the pit. This is your new office. Your first night has truly begun. The descent is surprisingly slow. The road scrapes against the brickwork, sending little showers of grit and grime down past you. Your world shrinks to the small, bobbing circle of light cast by your lantern in the feel of the rough, greasy rope in your hands. Above you, the square of night sky, framed by the faces of your crewmates, gets smaller and smaller. Then your feet touch the bottom. It's not a solid bottom. The surface gives way with a thick, viscous sucking sound. You sink up to your ankles, then your shins, in a cold, semi-liquid sludge. This is it. The accumulation of a decade of a wealthy merchant's household. The reality of it is far worse than your imagination could conjure. The lantern light reveals a subterranean world of nightmare. The walls of the pit are slick with a dark, glistening slime. The surface of the muck is uneven, littered with darker shapes and refuse you can't, and don't want to, identify. And the smell. Oh, the smell. Down here, it's not just a smell, it's a physical presence. It's so thick, so potent, it feels like you're breathing liquid. It coats your tongue, stings your eyes, and seems to seep directly through your skin. Your stomach heaves, and you have to fight back a wave of nausea. Vomiting here seems like a particularly cruel irony. You remember Arthur's advice and force yourself to breathe shallowly through your mouth, trying to disconnect your brain from what your senses are screaming at you. A bucket comes swinging down on its own rope, landing with a soft thud beside you. The command from above is a muffled shout through the rock. You grab the shovel. It feels alien in your hands. You bend your knees, trying to get leverage, and push the shovel into the muck. It's like trying to dig in thick, cold porridge. It's heavy, dense, and resists every movement. You manage to get a shovel out of the foul substance and heave it into the bucket. The splashing sound echoes horribly in the confined space. It takes 4 or 5 heavy scoops to fill the bucket. The physical effort is immense. Your back and shoulders are already screaming in protest. This is not just a disgusting job, it's brutally hard labor. "Ho!" You shout, your voice sounding strange and small in the pit. Slowly, the bucket begins its journey upwards, swaying as it goes. A few clumps of filth fall off, splashing near your feet. You watch it disappear into the darkness above. Then, the empty bucket comes swinging back down, and so it begins. You fall into a rhythm born of pure necessity. Scoop, lift, dump, scoop, lift, dump, shout, haul, wait, repeat. The world becomes this simple, awful cycle. You try not to think. You try to focus on the task, on the movement of your muscles. You become a machine made of flesh and bone, powered by desperation. It's in this state that you start to notice things. The contents of the pit are not uniform. They are a kind of disgusting archaeology of the household above. You see the fibrous remains of vegetables, eggshells, and what looks like small animal bones. This is a cold, hard fact of Tudor life that is often overlooked. The privy was not just for human waste. It was the all-purpose disposal unit. Kitchen scraps, floor sweepings, unwanted kittens. Anything and everything that needed to disappear was simply tossed into the hole. The concept of separating your trash was centuries away. Some historical cesspits have been excavated and found to contain an incredible array of household artifacts, from pottery shards to lost toys, giving archaeologists a uniquely intimate look into the daily lives of the past. You learn to move carefully. My wrong step could mean sinking deeper, or worse, losing your footing and falling face first into the morass. Drowning in a cesspit was a very real and truly horrific Way for a gong farmer to die. It wasn't common, but it happened. After what feels like an eternity, but is probably only an hour. Silas's head appears at the top of the pit. All right, lad, come on up. John's turn. The safety rope tightens, and you are pulled, blessedly, upwards. You emerge from the hole like a creature from another world, covered in filth, stinking beyond belief, your muscles trembling with exhaustion. You collapse onto the courtyard stones, gasping for the clean night air, which now smells as sweet as a field of flowers. Arthur hands you a water skin. You rinse your mouth out, spitting a foul brown stream onto the ground. You don't drink. Silas warned you against that. Drinking water while your body is adjusting to the fumes could make you violently ill. As you sit there, recovering, you watch the operation from the other side. John, as silent and stoic as ever, is tied to the rope and descends without a moment's hesitation. You and Arthur take your places at the windlass, the crank-operated pulley system for hauling the main buckets. Silas directs. Dave, he grunts, and you and Arthur put your shoulders into the wooden handles, turning the crank. The bucket, heavy and brimming, rises slowly from the pit. It requires all your strength. As it reaches the top, Silas grabs it, expertly swings it over to the waiting barrel, and dips the contents in with a disgusting sopping sound. The barrel is already a quarter full. You now understand the anatomy of this disgusting process. It's a team effort, a well-oiled machine. There's the delver, in the pit, the haulers at the windlass, and the master overseeing it all. There is no room for error, no time for weakness, and as you sit there, catching your breath, you realize something else. You survived. You faced the absolute worst, the belly of the beast, and you came back out. It's a strange, grim kind of pride. You are a gong farmer now. The smell is on you, the filth is on your clothes, and the knowledge of what lies beneath the city is now in your head. There's no going back. Your break is short-lived. Once John has sent up a dozen or so buckets, it's Arthur's turn to descend. His racking cough seems to get worse as he's lowered into the pit, the sound echoing up from the depths. It makes you wonder how long he's been doing this job, and what toll it has taken on his lungs. The damp, the foul air, it doesn't just kill you quickly with fire or suffocation. It can also kill you slowly. Now you are on bucket duty with John. You haul, dump, and lower, over and over. The work is punishing. The rope is rough on your hands, and the weight of the full buckets makes your arms feel like lead. It's during this time, while Arthur is in the pit, that something different happens. After hauling up a bucket, Silas doesn't immediately empty it. He peers inside, then grunts. Hum. He reaches in with a stick and fishes something out. It's a small, tarnished silver locket. He rinses it with a bit of water from the skin, rubbing it on his sleeve. This goes in the pot, he says, holding it up for you and John to see before tucking it into a small leather pouch on his belt. It's the first treasure you've seen. It's a strange, surreal moment. Here, in the midst of the most revolting labor imaginable, is a delicate object of beauty and sentiment, a lost piece of someone else's life. Silas notices the look on your face. Think of it as a tip from the lady of the house. He says, a rare glimmer of humor in his eyes. She probably doesn't even know it's gone. This practice, the communal pot for found items, is a fascinating detail. It turned the crew into a band of treasure hunters as well as sanitation workers, adding another layer of incentive and potential conflict to the job. Historians debate how common this was, or if mosters simply kept everything for themselves. Silas, it seemed, runs a relatively honest operation, at least by the standards of the London underworld. Your turn to descend again comes all too quickly. This time, the dread is mixed with a grim resignation. You know what to expect as you are lowered past the brickwork. You think about what Silas said. The pit breeze. It's not just a figure of speech. down in the muck. You start to feel it. A strange lightness in your head. The lantern flame, which you now watch with a hawk's intensity, seems to be burning a little brighter, a little taller. It's a subtle change, but a definite one. You remember Silas's warning if the flame grows. The air is foul. This is the damp he was talking about. Methane gas. What we now call fire damp is seeping from the decomposing waste. It's enriching the air, making the candle burn more eagerly. It's the first step towards a potential explosion. Your heart starts to beat faster. The dizziness increases. You feel a tingling in your fingers. This is the moment of truth. Do you follow the rule? Do you admit weakness? The temptation is to push through, to prove yourself. But Silas's warning, and the image of a fiery eruption he painted so vividly, echoes in your mind. Pride is not worth being cooked alive. You reach for the safety rope tied around your chest. You give it 2 sharp, distinct tugs. Almost immediately, the rope goes taut. Hold him up. You hear Silas's urgent command from above. The world starts moving upwards. The ascent feels much faster this time. You burst out into the cool night air, gasping, your head swimming. You stumble away from the opening, falling to your knees. The candle. You manage to choke out, pointing a trembling finger at the pit. The flame. It grew. Silas nods grimly. He wasn't testing you, he was trusting you to be his eyes and ears in the belly of the beast. He walks to the edge and peers down. Aye, she's right. He turns to Arthur. Get the scraper. Arthur retrieves the long-handled, whole light tool you saw earlier, under Silas's direction. He leans over the pit and begins to agitate the surface of the sludge from above, scraping and stirring them up. It's a process designed to release the trapped pockets of gas in a more controlled way. After a few minutes of this, Silas lowers the test candle again. This time, the flame burns steady. It's settled, he declares. John, you're up. Be quick about it. You have just had a direct encounter with the invisible killer of the cesspit, the toxic, flammable gases that Tudors simply called the damp or the bad air. They didn't understand the chemistry, of course. They understood it through the lens of experience and superstition. They spoke of evil spirits in the pits or poisonous vapors. The prevailing medical theory of the time was the doctrine of miasma, the idea that disease was spread by bad smells and foul air. In a way, they weren't entirely wrong. The hydrogen sulfide in the pits, which creates the rotten egg smell, is highly toxic. The methane is the explosive threat. Your quick thinking, your decision to trust the rule over your pride, may have just saved the whole crew. Silas claps you on the shoulder, a gesture that almost sends you sprawling. Good lad, he says. You learn fast. Better to be a live coward than a dead hero. It's the highest praise you've received all night. Use it. Your head still buzzing, watching John descend back into the darkness you just fled. You've learned the most important lesson of the Gong Farmer: the filth is the job, but the air is the enemy. It's a lesson written in the ghosts of all the men who didn't tug the rope in time. The rest of the night passes in a blur of filth and exhaustion. You, John, and Arthur rotating on out of the pit, a grim trinity of delvers. With each descent, you become a little more numb to the smell, a little more practiced in your movements. You learn to brace your feet against the slick brickwork for better leverage. You learn the precise flick of the wrist needed to get the maximum amount of sludge onto the shovel with the minimum amount of splashback. You are, horrifiedly, getting good at this. Between your shifts in the pit, you work above ground, hauling and dumping. There is no conversation. The only sounds are Silas' occasional grunt of command, the squeak of the pulley, the thud of the shovel, and the disgusting wet slap of the waste as it hits the inside of the barrel. It's a silent, shared ordeal. Yet, in this silence, a strange sort of camaraderie begins to form. It's not friendship, not yet. It's something more primal. When John is at the windows with you, You both learn to anticipate the other's rhythm, heaving in unison without a word. When Arthur has a coughing fit, John wordlessly passes him the water skin. When you nearly slip on a patch of spilled slime, Arthur's hand shoots out to steady you. These are small, almost unconscious gestures, but they build a fragile web of interdependence. You are all in this stinking hell together. Your survival is linked. You hold each other's safety lines. You trust the man in the pit to warn you of bad air. You trust the men above to pull you out if you do. This is the silent brotherhood of the gong farmers. Historians often portray such laborers as isolated, miserable individuals. But it's more likely they form tight-knit crews, much like sailors or miners. They shared a dangerous, secret-filled profession that set them apart from the rest of society. This isolation would have naturally bred a powerful sense of in-group loyalty. They were the only ones who understood the realities of the job, the terror of the damp, the grim satisfaction of finishing a deep pit, the shared secret of the treasure pot. As the hours crawl by, the barrels on the cart fill up, one by one. They are massive, each holding the equivalent of dozens of your bucket loads. The horse stands patiently, occasionally flicking its tail, seemingly oblivious to the foulness being loaded up behind it. You start to see your crewmates not just as functions, the coffer, the silent one, but as people. You notice the worn leather patches on Arthur's knees, a testament to years spent at this work. You see the calluses on John's hands, thick as bark. You even see a different side of Silas. He is a harsh master, but a fair one. He ensures the rotation is even, that no one man spends too much time in the pit. He watches the safety lines with an eagle eye. He is the captain of this stinking ship, and he has a vested interest in keeping his crew alive and functional. One of the most curious and frankly bizarre facts about gong farmers is their legal status. In some parts of England during this period, they were legally required to live in specific, designated areas, often on the outskirts of town. This was partly to contain the smell that clung to them and their equipment, but it also formalized their status as social outcasts. They were essential, yet they were to be kept separate. They were the untouchables of Tudor society. You wonder about Arthur and John. Where do they go when the sun rises? Do they have families, wives who have learned to live with the smell, children who are shunned at school because of their father's trade? You look at Arthur's gaunt face and persistent cough and wonder if he's saving for a future he'll never be healthy enough to enjoy. You look at John's powerful shoulders and wonder if he's saving to buy his way into a more respectable trade, like a blacksmith or a cooper. And what about you? What will you do with the shilling you hope to earn tonight? The questions hang in the air. Who knows? To speak of such things would be to break the silent code of the crew. Fear. In the dark, you are only what you do. You are a follower. You are a delver. You are a gong farmer. Finally, after what feels like a lifetime, the shovel hits something hard. A solid bottom, brick. You scrape the last of the thick sludge away. The pit is empty. It's a moment of profound, disgusting triumph. Done. You croak from the bottom of the pit, your voice hoarse. You are hauled up one last time, a filthy, triumphant creature emerging from the underworld. You stand in the courtyard, shivering with exhaustion and cold, but filled with a strange sense of accomplishment. You did it. You survived your first job. Silas inspects the pit with a lantern. He grunts, a sound that approximates satisfaction. Good work, he says, clean as a whistle. The irony is lost on no one. Now, cover is up. We're burning moonlight. You and John heave the heavy stone slab back into place. The tomb is sealed once more. The courtyard looks almost as it did when you arrived, save for the full barrels on your cart and the filth covering the three of you. The merchant will wake up in the morning, perhaps noticing a faint, lingering odor, but his problem has been solved, spirited away in the dead of night. He'll never know the hell that unfolded just a few yards from his sleeping head. You look at Arthur and John in the pre-dawn gloom. Their faces are masks of grime, their clothes caked in filth. But you see them differently now. They are not just outcasts, they are survivors. They are your silent companions in this strange, stinking world, and for tonight, at least, you are one of them. With the merchant's cesspit sealed, the first part of the job is done. But the night is far from over. Now comes the second act: transportation. The cart is laden with four enormous, sealed barrels, each brimming with the night's foul harvest. The horse, which has been standing with supernatural patience, strains as Silas clicks the reins and coaxes it forward. The cart was groan in protest under the immense weight. Your job is now to be an escort. You, do, also, and John walk alongside the cart, a silent, stinking on a guard. Silas leads the horse, navigating the labyrinth of London streets. This is a different kind of challenge. Before, you were hidden away in a private courtyard. Now, you are on the public thoroughfares, a moving island of stench, trying to get to the edge of the city before the sun rises. The city is at its quietest now, in the deep, dark hours before dawn. This is the time known as the Wolf's Watch. The taverns have finally emptied, and even the most dedicated revelers have stumbled home. The only people you see are the occasional night watchman, or a baker heading to his ovens, a ghostly figure dusted with flour. They see your cart, smell its approach from 100 yards away, and give you a wide berth. They avert their eyes, sometimes making a sign against evil, as if your very presence is a curse. You are a necessary phantom, a part of the city's machinery that no one wants to acknowledge. Silas seems to know every street, every alley, every shortcut. He moves with a quiet confidence, his huge frame a familiar sight to the city's nocturnal inhabitants. This is his kingdom. He points out landmarks to you, not the grand churches or Guildhall, but the landmarks of his trade. See that inn? The one with the blue door, he murmurs, pointing with his chin. Their pit is a nightmare, built on a spring, always filling with water. We charge them double. He gestures down a dark, narrow lane. Down there, a row of tenements. 8 families. One pit, fills up every 6 months. Good, steady work. You are seeing a secret map of London. A city defined not by its wealth or its piety, but by its waste. Each street, each building, is assessed by the quality and quantity of its gone. This knowledge is a form of power, a specialized intelligence that only men like Silas possess. The physical geography of Tudor London made this job both essential and incredibly difficult. There was no unified grid system. Streets were a chaotic tangle, some wide enough for a cart, others barely wide enough for a man to walk through. Many were paved, turning to quagmires of mud in the rain. Navigating a heavy, unwieldy cart through this maze in the dark was a skill in itself. You also learn a bit about the hierarchy of filth. The cesspit you just cleaned, a deep, brick-lined shaft, was a sign of wealth. It was a proper piece of infrastructure. Poorer households were a different story. Arthur, in a rare talkative moment, points to a dark cluster of houses. Over there, he rasps. They don't have proper pits, just a privy in the garden, a hole in the ground with a wooden seat over it. When it fills, they just cover it with dirt and dig a new one. He spits. Amateurs. There was a whole spectrum of sanitation, from the guard-robe chutes of castles that emptied into moats, to the wealthy merchant's cesspit, to the communal privies of tenements, down to the simple hole in the ground. The Gong Farmer's primary clientele were those in the middle and upper classes who had pits that were too substantial to simply abandon. This is a detail often missed. The Gong Farmer's work was intrinsically linked to a specific level of urban development and social status. As you get closer to the city walls, the character of the streets changes. The grand houses give way to smaller, more crowded dwellings, and then to workshops and tanneries. The air, impossibly, gets worse. The smells of animal hides, dyes, and industrial waste mingle with the cargo on your cart. You are heading for one of the city gates. Old Gate, on the eastern edge of the city. The gate is officially closed, but as you approach, A small side gate, a postern, is opened by a guard who seems to be expecting you. Another silent note, another invisible transaction. Silas leads the cart through the narrow opening and out into the suburbs' messy, unregulated sprawl of fields, junks, and workshops outside the formal city walls. The air feels fresh around here, but the landscape is grim. This is where the less pleasant aspects of city life are pushed. You pass tanneries, slaughterhouses, and brick kilns, all belching their own unique fumes into the night. You are part of this nocturnal migration of waste. It's not just you. In the distance, you see the flicker of another lantern, another cart on a similar journey. You are not the only crew working tonight. London is a massive organism, and you are just one of the cells in its digestive tract, carrying the waste products out to be expelled. Your destination is a place Silas calls the Stool. It's a designated dumping ground, a patch of marshy land near the riverbank that the city authorities have set aside for this very purpose. When you arrive, the stench tells you you're in the right place. It's a mountain range of refuse, glistening in the moonlight, piles of street sweepings, animal manure, and the dark, semi-liquid treasure of the Gong Farmers. This is the end of the line, the final destination for the contents of London's bowels. The Stool is a landscape from a nightmare. It's a vast, dark field of refuse, stretching towards the grey ribbon of the Thames. Mounds of filth rise like small hills, their shapes softened by the gloom. The ground underfoot is soft and treacherous. The air is thick with the ghosts of a million discarded things. This is where the city's secrets come to rest. Silas brings the cart to a halt at the edge of a particularly dark, wet-looking area. Here, he grunts. Tip him. Now begins the final, and in some ways, most dangerous part of the physical labor. The barrels are immensely heavy. Tipping them requires strength, coordination, and a great deal of care. You, John, and Arthur work together on the first barrel. You unseal the wooden lid, releasing a fresh wave of the horrific stench. Then, using brute force, you heave and push, slowly tilting the massive barrel on the edge of the cart. For a moment, it teeters, balanced between the cart and the ground. Then, with a great, curtains roll, the contents pour out onto the heap. A dark, thick cascade of filth that splatters and steams faintly in the cold night air. The barrel, suddenly lighter, thuds back onto the cart. You repeat the process 3 more times, your muscles straining, your body's working in a grim, synchronized dance. The work is sloppy. You can't avoid being splashed. The filth gets on your boots, your breeches, your hands. By the time the last barrel is empty, you feel as though you've been painted in. As you stand there, catching your breath, you notice something glinting in the muck from a previous dumping. You walk closer. Your lantern held low. Lying in the sludge is a small, silver button, intricately carved. It must have fallen from a wealthy man's coat, been swept up by a raker, and ended up here. But there are other things, too. Fragments of pottery, the jawbone of a sheep, a piece of a leather shoe. This whole area is an unofficial, disgusting museum of London life. It's here, in the midst of this filth, that you have your first real surprise. As you turn back to the cart, your lantern light catches something else. Not a button, not a coin. It's a flash of gold. Real gold. Your heart leaps into your throat. You look around. Silas is securing the empty barrels. John and Arthur are leaning against the cart, exhausted. No one else has seen it. The temptation is overwhelming. This is it. The myth made real. A piece of gold, lying right there for the taking. It would be so easy to bend down, snatch it up, and hide it in your pocket. Who would know this isn't from the pit? This isn't part of the cruise pot. This is salvage, finders keepers. This is the moral test of the Gong Farmer. The job is filled with these small, grubby temptations. Silas's rule was clear: you don't steal from the pit, But what about from the dump? The lines are blurry here. This is a lawless landscape. You stand there, frozen, for what feels like an eternity. The gold seems to pulse in the lantern light. It represents so much. It's not just a shilling. It's a new life. It's escape. It's a way out of the stinking, wretched existence. But then you think of Silas's face. His one rule about stealing. You think of the fragile trust that has been built tonight. This silent camaraderie. You think about what would happen if you were caught. The consequences would be far worse than just being fired. In this world, a thief could end up in the stocks, or branded, or worse. The academic debate about the criminal underworld often intersects with professions like this. Were gong farmers inherently part of it? Or were they just working-class men trying to survive? The answer is likely somewhere in between. They operated in the grey areas of society, straddling the line between licit and illicit. Your choice now, in this moment, is a choice about which side of that line you want to be on. You take a deep breath. You make your decision. Silas, you call out. Your voice steady. Look here. Silas, John, and Arthur Toon. You point with your lantern. Silas walks over, his heavy boots sinking into the mop. He sees the glint of gold. He bends down a rare occurrence for a man of his size and picks it up. It's a gold coin. A sovereign. By the looks of it, a fortune. Enough to feed a family for months. He turns it over in his palm, then looks at you. His expression is unreadable in the dark. You brace yourself, unsure if you've done the right thing. Then, he does something you don't expect. He tosses the coin in the air, catches it, and then throws it to you. You fumble, but manage to catch it. It's heavy in your hand. Its reality undeniable. That one's yours. Lad, he says, for being honest. He turns to the others. The rule is about the pits, about what belongs to the client. The lay store. The lay store is a gift from God. What we find here, we tip. He just invented a new rule, right on the spot. It's a clarification of the code. The pit is one thing, the dump is another. It's a subtle but important distinction. He then claps his hands. All right, a good night's work. Let's go home. You stare at the coin in your hand. Your mind reeling. This single piece of gold is more than you could have dreamed of. It changes everything. Arthur gives you a rare, gap-toothed smile. John gives a grunt that sounds like approval. You've not only survived the night, you've passed a crucial test. You've earned your place in the crew, not just with your neighbor, but with your character. As you climb onto the now empty cart for the ride back, a privilege for the return journey, you clutch the coin in your pocket. The stench of the laced oil is still all around you. The filth is still caked on your clothes, but for the first time, you feel a flicker of something that isn't just survival. It's hope. Dirty, stinking, golden hope. The journey back into the city is different. The cart is light, and the horse's pace is quicker. You, John, and Arthur are allowed to ride. A small reward for the night's brutal work. The sky in the east is beginning to soften, changing from inky black to a deep, bruised purple. The dawn is coming. You ride in silence, but it's a comfortable silence now. The silence of men who have shared an ordeal and emerged on the other side. The gold coin in your pocket feels like a warm, heavy secret. You keep touching it through the rough fabric of your breeches, reassuring yourself that it's real. This practice of allowing workers to keep what they found at the dump, known as tutting, would become a more formalized tradition for refuse collectors in later centuries. For you, it's a revelation. It transforms the job from simple wage labor into a kind of lottery. Every trip to the laced oil now holds a sliver of possibility, a chance to find another lost coin, another piece of discarded value. It's a powerful psychological hook, another reason to endure the stench and the shame. As you re-enter the city through the now open gate, London is beginning to stir. The first tendrils of smoke are rising from chimneys. You can hear the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the crowing of a rooster. The daytime world is waking up, and your time is running out. You are creatures of the night, and the coming sun is your enemy. You must be off the streets by the time the 5 o'clock bell rings. The law is strict. Silas pushes the horse, his eyes scanning the streets, which are becoming more populated by the minute. Early rising merchants, apprentices, and servants are beginning their day. This is when you first truly experience the social consequence of your new profession. As you pass a woman shaking a rug out of an upper-story window, she sees your cart, sees your filthy state, and her face contorts in a mask of pure disgust. She pulls the rug in and slams the shutter closed as if your very gaze could contaminate her. A man leading a donkey laden with vegetables actively steers his animal to the far side of the street, turning his face away and covering his nose with his sleeve. You are not just dirty, you are untouchable. The smell that clings to you is more than just a physical sensation, it's a social barrier. It announces your profession from 50 paces, marking you as unclean. You are the physical embodiment of the city's dirtiest secret, and the daylight world wants nothing to do with you. You arrive back at the alley behind the hogshead just as the first grey light of dawn is creeping over the rooftops. The work is not quite finished. The empty barrels must be cleaned, or at least rinsed. Using buckets of water hauled from a nearby well, you sluice out the worst of the remaining filth, the brown water pooling in the grimy alley. The tools are scraped clean and stored away. The cart is wiped down. It's a futile attempt to impose order on chaos, to wash away the unwashable. When everything is put away, Silas gathers the three of you. The moment of reckoning has arrived. He reaches into a pouch on his belt and pulls out a handful of coins. "Arthur," he says, handing him a few coins. "John," he gives him a similar amount. Then he turns to you. He looks you up and down, at your filthy clothes, your exhausted face. "A full night's work," he says, and presses a coin into your hand. It's a silver shilling. You stare at it. It's beautiful. It's clean. It shines in the pale morning light. This is what you endured the pit for. This is what you earned with your sweat and nausea. After the shock of the gold sovereign, this silver shilling feels more real, more tangible. This is your wage. This is the foundation of your new life. Silas explains the post-rupture, something that historians still piece together from old court records and account books. The shilling a night was a common, almost legendary rate for a gong farmer, but it wasn't guaranteed. A difficult job might earn you more. A short night or an easy pit might earn you less. And the master, Silas, always took his cut first. What you're holding is your share, a wage that still dwarfs what a respectable labourer could earn. "The tot," Silas says, taking out the small leather pouch containing the silver locket from the merchant's pit. "We'll split this at the end of the month." He looks at the gold coin still clutched in your other hand. "What you found at the lay stall is yours, but don't flesh it about. A man like you with a gold sovereign that invites questions, dangerous questions. It's sound advice. The money is a blessing and a curse. It can feed you, but it can also make you a target. Be here again at sundown." Silas says to all of you, "It's not a question. It's a command." With that, he turns and disappears into the back door of the hogshead, presumably to his own quarters. You, Arthur, and John are left standing in the alley. The sun is now properly rising. The city is coming to life with noise and activity. Your working day is over. Arthur gives you a nod, coughs, and shuffles off down the alley, melting into the morning crowds. John just grunts and heads in the opposite direction. You are alone again, but you are a different person than you were 24 hours ago. You are exhausted. You are filthy. You stink to high heaven. And you are, by the standards of your former life, rich. You have a silver shilling and a gold sovereign in your pocket. You have survived the pit. You have a job. But as you step out of the alley and into the morning light, You feel the stares of the passers-by like a physical blow. You are now officially a gong farmer, and you are about to find out what that means in the world of the day. The morning air is crisp, a stark contrast to the foulness you've just emerged from. But it does little to clear your head. Or, more importantly, the smell that clings to you. You step out of the alley, the shilling and sovereign burning holes in your pocket, and into the bustling London street. The city is awake now, a vibrant cacophony of street cries, cartwheels, and chattering voices. And you are, suddenly, an anomaly. People see you. Their eyes slide over your dirt-caked clothes, your hair matted with sweat and grime, and then their noses wrinkle. Their gazes, which moments ago were dismissive, now turn to expressions of open disgust. A shopkeeper setting out his wares catches sight of you and quickly turns his back, as if afraid the stench might leap off you and contaminate his perfectly folded linens. A group of brightly dressed apprentices giggles behind their hands, pointing subtly. A mother clutches her child closer, pulling the fabric of her shawl over his face as you pass. This is the meaning of invisible man. Not that they don't see you, but that they choose not to. They see your profession, your smell, and that's all. You are a walking, breathing embodiment of everything polite to society tries to ignore, to push away. You are the byproduct of their comfort, and they resent you for it. The social hierarchy of Tudor England was rigid and unforgiving. While money could buy many things, it couldn't always buy respect, especially when the source of that money was so utterly reviled. Historians often discuss the visible markers of status: clothing, accent, dwelling, but for the gong farmer, the invisible marker, the smell, was perhaps the most potent. It was a barrier more impermeable than any wall. You try to walk with purpose, to blend into the flow of people, but it's impossible. You are a contaminant in their pristine morning. Every step you take feels like an intrusion. You hear whispers as you pass gong farmer, spoken with a shudder. Nightmare, filth dweller. These are not just insults, they are labels, permanently affixed. Your first thought is to find a place to clean up, to wash away the physical evidence of your night. You think of a public bathish, but the idea quickly fades. Would they even let you in? The idea of polluting their clean water with the essence of a cesspit is probably unthinkable. You might even be reported to the authorities for attempting it. The concept of public hygiene for someone in your profession was not really a thing. In fact, there were often laws that dictated where and when you could dispose of your personal waste. And going to a communal bathhouse covered in human excrement would likely be considered a public nuisance, if not a direct violation. You decide to head back to the lodging house where you've been staying, a cheap, overcrowded place on a side street. It's barely a step above sleeping on the street, but it's a roof over your head. The landlady, a sour-faced woman with an even sourer disposition, usually barely acknowledges your existence. Today, however, is different. You push open the door, and the immediate reaction is palpable. A few lodgers sitting by the common fire turn their heads, inhale, and then recoil. The landlady, who is sweeping the floor, stops dead. Her broom clutter rests to the ground. She stares at you, her mouth agape. Good heavens, she gasps, clapping a hand over her nose. What in God's name is that smell? You stand there, at a blow of shame and exhaustion. I just finished work, you say, your voice barely a whisper. Work, she shrieks, her voice rising in outrage. You've been with the night soil man, haven't you? Get out. Get out of my house this instant. You'll foul the whole place. The decent folk won't stand for it. Your heart sinks. This is it. The other lodgers murmur in agreement, their faces grim. You are being evicted, not for non-payment, not for bad behavior, but for your very presence, for the essence of your new livelihood. It's a humiliation. Run, public. You are literally too dirty to be under the same roof as others. This kind of immediate, visceral social rejection was a constant reality for gong farmers. It's a strange paradox. The very people who benefited most directly from their labor, those with proper cesspits, were often the most repulsed by them. Their lives were lived in a constant state of paradox, wealthy yet reviled, essential yet shunned. You don't argue. There's no point. You turn and walk back out into the street. Your few meager belongings in a small bundle under your arm. You are homeless again. And now, you carry an invisible mark that tells everyone what you are. You try to find a quiet corner, a place where you can just sit down and process the dizzying shift in your circumstances. You find a deserted patch of grass near the city walls, where no one is likely to come near you. Here, you finally allow yourself to examine the gold sovereign. It glows dully in your palm, so much money, enough to rent a small room for weeks, perhaps even months, if you could find someone willing to rent to you. This is where the cold, hard economic reality of the Gong Farmer kicks in. Yes, the pay is exorbitant, but what can you buy with it when doors are slammed in your face? When people recoil from your touch? Could you buy food? Yes, but you'd be served at arm's length, or told they're out of whatever you wanted. Could you buy new clothes? Perhaps, but the moment you put them on, the smell would transfer, and the stigma, once attached, would be harder to wash away than any physical filth. There's a strange, almost absurd, historical anecdote about a similar kind of social stigma. During the later medieval period, there were strict laws in some European cities about where butchers could live and work. Due to the smell and blood, they were often forced to live on the outskirts, just like the Gong farmers. It speaks to a deep, primal human aversion to certain necessary, but unclean, professions. You realize that your problem isn't just the dirt on your clothes, it's the professional identity that has seeped into your very being. You are now the embodiment of the city's excrement. Your money, your parcel, comes with a heavy, invisible chain. You can earn more than a craftsman, but you can't buy his place in society. You spend the day walking the outskirts of the city, avoiding eye contact, keeping to the shadows. You try to sleep in a sheltered nook, but the stares and the muttered insults from the few people who pass by make it impossible. The shilling and the sovereign in your pocket are a constant reminder of your strange new reality. You are rich, but you are a pariah. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky with the same golden hues you saw yesterday, you feel a grim sense of anticipation. Night is coming. Your world, the world where your smell is a badge of honor, where your grotesque work is valued, where you are a silent, essential part of the city's hidden pulse, the world where you are not an outcast, but a king in the kingdom of filth. You start making your way back towards the hogshead. The daylight world has rejected you, but the night, with all its horrors and its strange promises, is waiting. And tonight, you will have a place to belong. As dusk settles over London, you arrive back in the alley behind the hogshead. The familiar, sour smell of the cart and the damp stone feels, strangely, like coming home. Arthur and John are already there, sitting on upturned buckets, sharing a piece of hard bread in silence. They nod at you as you approach, a simple gesture of acknowledgement. There are no questions about where you've been or what you've done. They know. They've lived it. You sit down, your body aching from a day of walking and a night of labor. The contrast between your day and the coming night is stark. In the daylight, you were a ghost, shunned and reviled. Here, in the gathering shadows, you are simply a member of the crew. Your stench doesn't repel them, it's the smell of shared experience. Silas emerges from the tavern, a chunk of cheese in one hand and a hunk of bread in the other. He tosses you a piece of each. It's the first thing you've eaten all day, and you devour it rather than sweet. It's not a kindness, you realize, but a practical necessity. A requacker is a liability. Ate well on your gold sovereign, did you? He grunts, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. You just shake your head, your mouth full of bread. You don't need to tell him about the landlady, the stares, the whispers. He knows the story. It's his story, too. This is the moment you decide to confront your problem. You can't keep sleeping on the streets. You need a place to live. A place where your profession isn't grounds for immediate eviction. Silas, you sighed, after swallowing your food. I need a room, my landlady. You trade off. But he understands. He chews his cheese thoughtfully for a moment. Boys, he says. That's always the first problem. He points with his chin towards a row of dark, beaming tenements down the street. There's a woman, Martha, on the top floor of the end building. Rent rooms, says. Accustomed to our kind of work. Her late husband was a tanner. She knows a thing or two about strong smells and odd hours. This is a crucial piece of information. There exists a parallel society, a network of people who cater to the city's outcasts. Landlords, shopkeepers, and tavern owners who, for a price, are willing to overlook the social and olfactory stigmas that follow men like you. This is the shadow economy where your dirty money is not just accepted, but welcomed. Whether these enclaves for unclean professions were officially sanctioned or just developed organically out of necessity is a point of historical contention. In some cities, there were legally mandated quarters for certain trades. In London, it seems to have been more of a de facto segregation, driven by social pressure and economic pragmatism. Tell her Silas sent you, he adds, and don't try to haggle. Her price is her price. After you finish your meager meal, Silas gives you the night's assignment, an easy one tonight. He says, a small inn near the Fleet. The pit's not deep, but the owner's a weasel. He'll try to short us. Let me do the talking. As the 9 o'clock bell tolls, you set off once more. Tonight, the journey feels different. The stares of the few people still on the street don't sting as much. You have a destination not just for your work, but for after. You have a plan. The job at the inn is just as Silas described. The pit is shallow, the work straightforward. The innkeeper, a thin man with shifty eyes, hovers nearby, complaining about the smell and trying to hurry you along. Silas handles him with a stony silence that is more intimidating than any threat. When the work is done and the pit is covered, the innkeeper tries to pay Silas a few pence less than the agreed price. Silas simply stands there, his massive arms crossed, and stares at the man. He doesn't say a word. The silence stretches. The innkeeper begins to sweat. Finally, with a frustrated sigh, he slaps the correct amount of coin into Silas's hand. It's a small lesson in the power dynamics of this world. You may be despised, but your service is essential. And a man like Silas knows how to leverage that dependency. The trip to the lay stall is quick and uneventful. No gold coins this time. Just the grim, familiar business of emptying the barrels into the stinking darkness. When you return to the alley, the night's work done, Silas pays you your shilling. You now have 2 shillings and a gold sovereign. A small, but significant, fortune. You feel its weight in your pocket as you say your silent goodbyes to John and Arthur and head towards the tenement Silas pointed out. It's a rickety, grim-looking building, but the sort of a bed. Any bird propels you up the creaking stairs. You knock on the door at the top floor. It's opened by a woman with a weary face and shrewd eyes. This must be Martha. What do you want? She asks, her voice flat. She smells you, but her expression doesn't change. Silas sent me. You say, I'm looking for a room. She looks you up and down, the long, appraising stare. Silas. As so you're one of his night men. She doesn't say it with disgust, but, as a simple statement of fact, the room is for pence a week, paid in advance, no guests, no trouble. You're out before dawn and back after dusk. I don't want to see you or smell you during the day. Agreed. For pence a week. It's a steep price for what is likely a tiny, drafty garret, but you don't care. It's a place to exist. Agreed. You say, and you pull out your coins. You hand her the money, and she leads you to a small, cell-like room at the back of the building. It contains nothing but a straw mattress on the floor and a small, shuttered window. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. You bar the door, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you are truly alone. You strip off your filthy work clothes, bundling them in a corner. The smell still clings to your skin, but here, in this small, private space, it doesn't matter. You lie down on the straw mattress. The exhaustion of 2 nights' labor and a day's wandering finally catching up to you. You are the pariah. You are a member of a shadow society. But you are also a man with a roof over his head and money in his pocket. It's a strange, dirty, and precarious existence, but it is yours. As you drift off to sleep, the first real sleep you've had in days, you realize you've spent your first filthy, hard-earned fortune, and it was worth every penny. The next few weeks fall into a grueling, yet predictable, rhythm. Your life is cleaved into. By night, you are a delver, a fuller, a creature of the pits. You learn the geography of London's underworld, one cesspit at a time. By day, you are a ghost, confined to your small, bare room, sleeping while the sunlit world bustles on without you. You become intimately familiar with the social strata of London, but from the bottom up, you learn that the cesspits of the wealthy are a world away from those of the merely well-to-do. One night, your crew gets a contract in a truly affluent neighborhood, a stone's throw from the river. It's the home of a wealthy wool merchant, a man whose name is known throughout the city. The house is a miniature fortress of timber and stone, and the privy is unlike any you've seen before. It's not just a hole in the ground in a courtyard, it's a garderobe, a small room built into the side of the house itself. Inside, a stone or wooden seat is positioned directly over a chute that leads down to a sealed pit in the foundations. This is the height of Tudor luxury. For the family, it means they don't have to brave the cold or the rain of an outdoor privy. For you, it means the pit is deeper, more contained, and often more concentrated. As you are lowered into this particular pit, the stench is overwhelming, but the contents tell a story. You find not just the usual kitchen scraps, but oyster shells, cherry pits, and even the delicate bones of a small bird, perhaps a quail. It's a direct, visual insight into the diet of the rich. You are literally wading through the evidence of their consumption. This is a fascinating aspect of the job that historians and archaeologists cherish. The excavation of historic cesspits, particularly those from wealthy households, provides an unparalleled snapshot of diet, health, and daily life. Things that don't survive in written records like seeds, fish bones, and fragments of imported pottery are perfectly preserved in the anaerobic environment of the pit. You are, in a very real sense, an archaeologist of the immediate past. While working in this pit, John, who is down with you, grunts and points his shovel at the brickwork. Carved into the slimy bricks are a series of dates and initials T. 0.152这 0.155 It's the work of previous gong farmers. A secret guest book written at the bottom of the world. It's a message from the past, from men who stood exactly where you are standing now, surrounded by the same filth, doing the same job. It's a strangely humanizing moment, a connection across the decades. The desire to leave a mark, to say I was here, persists even in the most wretched of circumstances. Some historians speculate that these markings could have been a way of tracking how long a pit took to fill, a piece of practical data for the next crew. In contrast, a few nights later, you clean the pit of a Master Baker's Guild hall. Here, the waste is different. It's less varied, filled with more grain husks and cheap vegetable fibers. The pit itself is a simple, wide, brick-lined cylinder, built for volume and functionality rather than comfort. It serves dozens of people, and it shows. By cleaning the toilets of the city's elite, you gain a strange intimacy with them. You see the unvarnished reality behind their public facades. The wealthy merchant with the fancy garderobe also has a pit full of discarded, broken wine bottles, The pious guild master's cesspit contains evidence of gambling a few stray dice that must have fallen from a pocket. You know their secrets from the bottom up. You see the things they flush away, the things they want to forget. It's a form of power, this knowledge, albeit a useless and disgusting one. Your life in your small room is monastic. You sleep during the day. The sounds of the city muffled by your cheap walls. Martha, your landlady, is true to her word. She leaves you alone. Sometimes, when you wake in the late afternoon, you find a small loaf of bread and a piece of cheese left outside your door, part of the service your 4 pence a week pays for. It's a purely transactional relationship, but it's stable. It's safe. You start to save your money. Each shilling is a victory. You keep your growing stash hidden under a loose floorboard. The gold sovereign remains your talisman, a secret source of comfort. You begin to understand the financial logic of this trade. A man could, if he was careful and didn't drink his wages away, accumulate a significant amount of capital. What he could do with that capital, however, was another question entirely. You try, once, to buy a new shirt. You go to a market stall late in the day, hoping the fading light will hide your identity. But the stall owner, a man with a nose for business and, apparently, for gong farmers, takes one look at you and doubles the price. Distinct tax, friend, he says with a greasy smile. Everything you touch has to be cleaned twice. It's extortion, plain and simple. You pay it, your cheeks burning with shame and anger. It's a harsh lesson in the economics of being an outcast. Your high wages are constantly being chipped away by the social penalties of your job. The world will take your money, but it will make you pay a premium for the privilege. You return to your room with the new shirt. It feels rough and clean. You hold it up, a small symbol of your progress. But when you put it on, you fancy you can already smell the faint, ghostly stench of your profession seeping into the new fabric. You realize with a sinking heart that the stink isn't just on your clothes anymore. It's in your hair, in your skin, in the very idea of you. It's a stain that no amount of money can truly wash away. The work is not just disgusting and physically demanding, it's also governed by a web of strict, and sometimes bizarre, regulations. Silas, in his gruff way, makes sure you understand them. The law is not your friend. It's a tool used by the daylight world to keep your nocturnal world in check. One night, as you're loading the final barrel onto the cart, you hear the distant chime of the 5 o'clock bell. You've run late. The job, a particularly deep and stubborn pit at a dyer's workshop, took longer than expected. A wave of panic washes over you. Silence. The bell. You say, your voice tight with anxiety. I have ears. Boy, he grunts. But you see a new tension in his shoulders. He urges the horse into a trot. A dangerous speed for the heavy cart on the uneven streets. We need to be off the main thoroughfare. No. This isn't just about social disapproval. Being caught working, or, more specifically, transporting gum after 5, is a public order offense. The penalties are severe. You could be fined a significant sum, enough to wipe out a week's wages. Your equipment, the cart and barrels that are the lifeblood of your trade, could be impounded, and for the ultimate humiliation, you could be sentenced to the stocks. The thought of being locked in the stocks, at the mercy of the public for a day, is terrifying. It's not just the discomfort, it's the shame. People would throw rotten vegetables, animal dung, and insults at you. You would be a spectacle, a living symbol of filth, punished for all to see. For a gong farmer, a profession already mired in shame, it would be an unbearable degradation. You race through the awakening streets, a frantic, stinking procession against the dawn. Every corner you turn, you expect to see the watchman, his lantern held high, ready to apprehend you. You are literally outlaws of the sunrise. This strict curfew is a well-documented historical fact, A proclamation by the Lord Mayor of London in the 16th century explicitly forbade any raker, gong farmer, or other person from carrying any noisome or everything through the streets during the day. The city was obsessed with maintaining a facade of order and cleanliness, even if the reality was anything but. Luckily, you make it back to the alley just as the streets are filling with people. You are breathless, your heart pounding. Silas leans against the wall, his face pale under the grime. Too close, he mutters. Too close. This close call makes you aware of the constant legal peril you operate under. It's not just the curfew. Silas explains other rules. You are forbidden from dumping your cargo anywhere other than the designated lay stall. Some desperate or lazy crews will try to dump their barrels into the Thames directly from the city, or into a quiet ditch. If caught, the punishment was swift and harsh. The river was the city's main source of drinking water for those who couldn't afford beer, and polluting it was a serious crime. There are even regulations about the pits themselves. A homeowner could be fined if their cesspit overflowed and created a public nuisance. This, of course, was what generated much of your business. The law, in this case, was your best advertisement. One of the strangest pieces of legislation you learn about is the law of eavesdrop. This ancient rule dictated that a homeowner was responsible for the rainwater that dripped from their eaves. They had to leave a certain amount of space between their house and their neighbor's property to allow for this. In a crowded city like London, this often led to disputes. What does this have to do with you sometimes? A cesspit would be located right on a property line, leading to arguments about who was responsible for the cost of emptying it. Silas has had to act as a reluctant mediator in more than one such dispute. His presence and the overwhelming smell of his trade often a powerful incentive for the arguing homeowners to come to a quick agreement. These legal complexities reveal that being a master gong farmer like Silas wasn't just about managing a crew. It required a shrewd understanding of contracts, property law, and city ordinances. You had to know your rights and, more importantly, the loopholes. A few nights later, you witness the consequence of breaking the rules firsthand. While working on a job, you see another crew being accosted by the watch. They had tried to use a side alley that was too narrow for their cart and had gotten a wheel stuck, blocking the way. They were still there after 5, and the watchman, an officious man enjoying his moment of power, was taking down their names. Their master was arguing, but it was hopeless. You see the look of despair on the faces of the crewmen. They would lose their pay, and possibly much more. Silas watches from the shadows, his face grim. "Thomas," he whispers, "tried to save 5 minutes and lost a whole night's work." It's a sobering lesson. In this job, you are constantly walking a tightrope. On one side is the physical danger of the pit. On the other is the legal danger of the city. A single misstep in either direction could lead to disaster. You learn to be as quiet as a cat, as efficient as a machine, and as invisible as a shadow. Your survival depends not just on your strength, but on your ability to navigate the treacherous legal landscape of Tudor London. A world where the laws were written to protect the powerful from the sight, sound, and smell of men like you. The relationship between the gong farmer and his customer is one of the strangest in Tudor society. It's a transaction born of absolute necessity on one side and grudging acceptance on the other. You are providing an essential service, yet you are treated as little more than a necessary evil. Most of the time, you never even see the homeowner. The contract is made with Silas, and you perform your foul task under the cloak of darkness while the household sleeps. But one night, this invisible barrier is broken. The job is at the home of a prosperous-looking cloth merchant near the old street, Paul's Cathedral. It's a respectable, middle-class dwelling. The work is routinist under brick-lined pit in a small garden at the back of the house. You are pleasant at Scourer. John and Arthur are in the middle of the job, working with the quiet efficiency you've now perfected. You've just finished a shift in the pit and are taking a moment to catch your breath while Arthur is below. Suddenly, a door at the back of the house creaks open. A man in a long nightshirt, holding a flickering candle, steps out into the garden. A chief of middling height, with a fussy, pinched face and iron tight perched crookedly on his head. This is the owner. What is all this ruckus, he demands, his voice a high-pitched whine. And that smell, it's seeping into the house. My wife is unable to sleep. Silas, who had been quietly observing from the shadows, steps forward. We are being as quiet as we can, Master Fletcher, he says, his voice a low rumble. This is not a silent business. The merchant, Fletcher, seems taken aback by Silas's size, but his indignation quickly overrides his fear. I am paying you a handsome sum to solve a problem, not to create a new one. Can you not work faster? This is a classic customer complaint, timeless and universal. But in this context, it feels absurd. You want to shout at him, to tell him to come down here and see what faster would entail. The pit is deep, Master Fletcher, Silas replies calmly. Haste in this trade leads to accidents, and a much greater mess. We will be done before dawn. Fletcher is not placated. He peers at the operation, his nose wrinkled in disgust. He watches as you and John haul up a dripping bucket and empty it into the barrel. It is utterly barbaric, he mutters, more to himself than to you, that you men can even do this. There's a strange mixture of fascination and revulsion in his eyes. He is both repulsed by and drawn to the raw, visceral reality of the work. For a moment, he is seeing behind the curtain of his own comfortable life, and he doesn't like it. This kind of tense interaction highlights the massive social and psychological gap between the service provider and the recipient. He sees you not as skilled laborers performing a dangerous task, but as creatures from another world, defined only by the filth you handle. The historical record is mostly silent on these direct interactions. The wealthy wrote letters and diaries, but they rarely mentioned the men who cleaned their toilets by name. The Gong farmers were illiterate and left no records of their own. So what these conversations were actually like is a matter of historical speculation, but it's likely they were fraught with the tension of class, shame, and mutual dependency. Fletcher continues to hover, offering unhelpful suggestions. Surely there is a better way to do this, a pump. Perhaps. Silas gives a short, humorless laugh. If you have a pump that can move this sludge, Master Fletcher, you could make a fortune. Until then, it's buckets and shovels. The merchant then complains about the state of his garden, pointing to a few splatters of mud on his rose bushes. You will clean that up? Of course. Of course, Silas says, his voice tight. The confrontation is a lesson in humility and power. Fletcher has the power of the purse. He is the customer, the one in the clean nightshirt. But Silas and his crew have a different kind of power. You have the power of indispensability. Fletcher needs you far more than you need him specifically. If you were to pack up and leave, his problem would remain, festering in his garden. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of his complaining, Fletcher's wife calls to him from the house. With one last glare of disapproval, he retreats back inside, slamming the door. The garden is quiet again, save for the sounds of your work. Weasel, John grunts. The first word he has spoken all night. Arthur, holed up from the pit for his break, just shakes his head. They're all the same. He coughs. They want the magic trick without seeing the magician. The encounter leaves a sour taste in your mouth. It's one thing to be shunned by strangers on the street. It's another to be berated by the very person whose life you are making more sanitary and pleasant. You are a reminder of a part of his existence he would rather forget, and he resents you for it. You finish the job with a renewed, grim determination. Before you leave, Silas, true to his word, takes a bucket of water and carefully washes the mud from the merchant's precious rose bushes. It's a final, ironic act of service. As you wheel the cart away into the pre-dawn darkness, the incident stays with you. You realize that part of the job isn't just dealing with the filth in the pits. but also with the contempt of the customers you serve. They pay you for your labor, but they offer you no dignity. It's a transaction that cleans their homes but leaves you feeling dirtier than ever. The weeks turn into months. The rhythm of your life, sleep by day, toil by night, becomes ingrained in your very bones. You are no longer the terrified newcomer. You are a seasoned gong farmer. You can estimate the depth of a pit by the echo of a dropped stone. You can read the subtle flicker of a candle flame that signals bad air. You can haul a full bucket without spilling a drop. You have become brutally efficient. But this efficiency comes at a cost. Your body is starting to keep a record of the abuse you put it through every night. It starts with your back. A dull, persistent ache in your lower spine that never truly goes away. It's there when you wake up on your straw mattress, a grim morning greeting. It's there as you stand in the pit, the constant bending and lifting putting an unnatural strain on your muscles. You see the same ache in the way Arthur constantly tries to stretch his back, and in the way even the mighty Silas sometimes presses a hand to his spine after a particularly heavy lift. Then there are your hands. They are perpetually raw. The rough rope and splintered wood of the tools have given you a permanent layer of calluses, but beneath them, your skin is often cracked and sore. The filth is impossible to completely wash away. It gets into every cut and scrape, leading to small, festering sores that take weeks to heal. You learn to bind your worst cuts with scraps of rag before a shift, a primitive form of protective gear. You also develop a cough. It's not as bad as Arthur's deep, rattling affliction, but it's there, a dry, hacking cough that comes from months of breathing in the dust, the damp, and the general foulness of your working environment. You start to understand why Arthur is so gaunt, so frail. This job is hollowing him out from the inside. The long-term health consequences for gong farmers were, unsurprisingly, grim. While they may have developed some immunity to the common diseases festering in the pits, they were constantly exposed to a cocktail of toxins and pathogens. Chronic respiratory illnesses, like the one afflicting Arthur, were likely common. Skin diseases, infections, and debilitating joint and back problems would have been a constant reality. The historical record is sparse on their specific medical issues, but we can infer from the nature of the work that their life expectancy was likely much lower than that of the general population. Their high wages a direct trade-off for a shorter, more painful life. One night, the physical toll of the job becomes terrifyingly real. You are working on a simple pit, but you're tired. Your movements are clumsy, as you heave a particularly heavy shovel fuel of sludge into the bucket. The sharp, searing pain shoots through your shoulder. You cry out, dropping the shovel. The pain is so intense it makes you dizzy. You can't lift your arm. Every attempt sends a fresh wave of agony through you. You have to give the two-tug signal on the safety rope. You are hauled up, your face pale with pain, cradling your useless arm. Silas takes one look at you and knows. You pulled something, he says, his voice flat. There is no sympathy, only a pragmatic assessment of the situation. You're no good to me tonight. John and Arthur have to finish the job short-handed, which means a longer, harder night for them. You sit on the side, a useless observer. The pain in your shoulder a throbbing reminder of your body's fragility. You have become a liability. At the end of the night, Silas pays John and Arthur their full share. He gives you nothing. No work, no pay, he shows, without malice. It's just the rule, the brutal, unforgiving logic of this world. You walk back to your room alone, your shoulder on fire, your pocket empty. The reality of your situation crashes down on you. What happens if you can't work for a week or a month? Your savings, carefully hoarded under the floorboard, will quickly dwindle. An injury doesn't just mean pain, it means poverty. There is no sick pay, no compensation for injuries sustained on the job. You are entirely on your own. This vulnerability was the dark side of the gong farmer's high wage. A craftsman in a guild might have access to a communal fund for sick or injured members, A servant in a great house might be cared for by their master, but you, an independent contractor in the filth trade, have no safety net. You spend the next few days in your room, a prisoner of your own body. The pain in your shoulders slowly subsides to a dull ache. You eat sparingly, trying to make your small store of food last. You listen to the sounds of the city outside your window, the world of healthy, working people, and you feel a profound sense of isolation. This period of forced idleness gives you time to think. You look at your savings. You have accumulated a respectable sum, more money than you'd ever seen before in your life. But what good is it if your body breaks down? You think of Arthur's cough, of Silas's back. You realize that this job is a race. You have to earn enough money to escape before the work itself destroys you. This is a bizarre and little-known aspect of the profession. The physical toll was so immense that it created a built-in career limit. A gong farmer's working life was likely short. You either got out with your health and your savings intact, or you ended up like Arthur, a walking ghost, coughing your life away for a few more pennies. After nearly a week, your shoulder feels strong enough to work again. You show up in the alley at dusk, your heart full of apprehension. Will Silas take you back, or have you been replaced? He looks you over, tells you to lift a bucket. You do, gritting your teeth against the lingering ache. He nods. All right, he says, but you're on light duty tonight. Pulling only, no pit work. It's a small concession, but it feels like a monumental reprieve. You are back in the crew. You are earning again, but something has changed. The illusion of your own invincibility is gone. You are acutely aware that your body is a fragile machine. Another clock is ticking. Every shilling you earn is a coin paid for with a small piece of your own vitality. Just as you're settling back into the grim routine, a job comes along that is unlike any other. It's a whispered rumor at first, a ripple of excitement and fear through the small, grimy world of London's nightmen. A contract has been issued for a royal cleaning. It's not for the King's main residence at Whitehall Palace. That was a sprawling, chaotic complex with its own strange sanitation solutions. This job is for a set of privies at the Tower of London. The Tower. The very name sends a chill down your spine. It's a fortress, a prison, a place of power and terror. The idea of voluntarily entering it, even for work, seems insane. Silas gathers the crew in the alley, his face more serious than usual. We have the tower contract, he says, his voice slow. The Beauchamp Tower. It's where they keep the high-status prisoners. A job like this is both a great honor and a great risk. The pay is exceptional, far more than any private citizen would offer. The Crown pays well for services rendered, but working for the Crown means scrutiny. It means guards watching your every move. It means any mistake, any perceived transgression, could have dire consequences. There are no shifty-eyed merchants to intimidate here, only the cold, hard authority of the state. Why would the royal household hire an outside crew for such a task? Historians suggest that even royal palaces, for all their grandeur, struggled with the basic realities of waste management. While some castles had sophisticated guard-room systems, many official buildings relied on simple cesspit that needed regular cleaning, just like any other building. Hiring a specialized, private crew like Silas's was often more efficient than trying to maintain a dedicated team on the royal payroll. It was outsourcing, 16th century style. The night of the job, the mood is tense. You approach the tower not as a prisoner in chains, but as a worker with a cart. Yet it feels almost the same. You are met at the by-ward tower gate by a stern-faced yeoman warder, one of the famous beefeaters. His uniform a splash of crimson and gold in the lantern light. He checks your names against a list, his eyes lingering on each of you with suspicion. Silas the Gong Farmer, he asks, his tone making it sound like an accusation. Aye, Silas grunts. Follow me, and no straying, touch nothing. You are led through the dark, echoing archways of the tower complex. The sheer scale of the stone walls is oppressive. This is a place built to keep people in, and the feeling is palpable. You can almost hear the ghosts of history whispering from the stone. You pass the white tower, a pale, monstrous shape against the night sky, and you can't help but think of the famous prisoners who have been held within these walls in Berlin, Sir Thomas More, and even the future Queen Elizabeth I. Your destination is the Beauchamp Tower, a smaller, but still imposing structure used to house prisoners of noble or high rank. The Yeoman warder leads you to a small, secure courtyard at its rear. The pit is there, its stone cover sealed tight. Another guard is posted at the courtyard entrance, his halberd held at the ready. You are being watched. The work itself is the same. The filth of a nobleman is, fundamentally, no different from the filth of a merchant. But the context changes everything. You work under the silent, unblinking gaze of the guard. Every splash, every grunt, every clatter of a bucket feels amplified in the tense silence. While in the pit, you notice something unusual. The waste here is different. There are more remnants of fine food, scraps of rich textiles that might have been used as toilet paper, and even a few waterlogged pages of what looks like a book, the ink bleeding into an illegible mess. It's a poignant reminder of the men imprisoned above you. They may be traitors to the crown, but they are still living, eating, and reading. One of the strangest and still debated historical tidbits about royal sanitation involves the Groom of the Stool. This was a real and highly prestigious position in the Tudor court. The Groom was the male courtier responsible for attending to the monarch during excretion. He would monitor the king's bowel movements, a key indicator of health, provide water and a towel, and generally manage the royal privy. It was considered a position of immense intimacy and trust, and the Groom of the Stool often became one of the king's closest confidants and most powerful advisors. The fact that the most intimate and unclean job in the palace was also one of the most powerful is a perfect paradox. You, however, are at the opposite end of that royal digestive tract. You are not a trusted courtier, you are a hired hand, dealing with the anonymous end product. The job proceeds without incident, your crew working with a grim professionalism that seems to impress the stoic guards. As you finish and seal the pit, the chief yeoman warder inspects your work. He nods, a curt, almost imperceptible sign of approval. He leads Silas away to be paid, while you, John, and Arthur are made to wait in the courtyard under guard. You can't help but look up at the dark, barred windows of the tower above. Are there men up there right now, watching you, a disgraced gay heretical bishop? You are cleaning up their waste. A final, intimate service to men whose lives are forfeit. It's a profoundly strange and humbling thought. Silas returns, his face impassive, but you can see a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. The pay must have been good. You are escorted back out of the tower, the great gates closing behind you with a sound of finality. You are back in the familiar, dirty streets of London. But something has shifted. You have performed a service for the crown. You have worked in the most feared and famous building in England. You are still a gong farmer, still an outcast. But tonight, you wear a royal gong farmer. It's a strange, secret honor that you will carry with you in the nights to come. It doesn't change your station in life, but it adds another layer to the bizarre, contradictory identity you are forging in the city's darkness. The money from the tower job is a significant boost to your savings. The pouch under your floorboard is getting heavy with this newfound wealth. A dangerous thought begins to take root in your mind, the idea of a better life, not just a better room, but a real change. You start to notice the things your money can buy. You can afford better food, instead of the stale bread and hard cheese that is your usual fare. You start buying hot pies from a street vendor near your lodging. The first time you do, the vendor, a woman with a flour-dusted apron, serves you with the usual wary distance, but you become a regular customer. Every evening before your shift, you buy a pie. You pay with clean coin. You don't haggle. You are polite. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, her demeanor changes. The wary look is replaced by one of simple recognition. The usual. Then she asks one evening, a hint of a smile on her face. It's a small thing. A tiny crack in the wall of your social isolation. You are no longer just a gong farmer. You are the man who buys the steak and kidney pie every night. It's a new identity, one purchased for a penny a day. Encouraged by this small victory, you decide to tackle a bigger problem: your clothes. The stink tax at the market stall still rankles you, so you devise a new strategy. You go to a second-hand clothes dealer in a different part of the city, a place where you are not known. But before you go, you take a risk. You visit a public bathhouse. You go in the middle of the day, when it's least crowded. You pay extra, telling the attendant you've just finished a dirty job on the docks. It's a lie, but a plausible one. You scrub yourself raw, using the harsh lye soap until your skin is red and burning. It doesn't completely eliminate the smell. You're convinced it's seeped into your very soul, but it's the cleanest you've been in months. Then, dressed in your best set of old clothes, you go to the dealer. You manage to buy a decent wool tunic and a sturdy pair of breeches for a fair price. Putting them on feels like putting on a new skin. You walk through the streets, and for the first time, you don't feel the immediate, recoiling stares of the public. You are anonymous. You are normal. It's a heady, intoxicating feeling. But the illusion is fragile. The moment you return to your room, to your bundled up work clothes waiting in the corner, the spell is broken. The faint, ever-present odor of your profession reminds you who you really are. You can buy the costume of a normal man, but can you ever truly play the part? This is the central dilemma for the upwardly mobile gong farmer. Money provided the means for social camouflage, but the stain of the profession was difficult to wash away entirely. The historical record is largely silent on what happened to gong farmers who managed to save a significant amount of money. Did they successfully retire and blend into respectable society, or were they forever marked by their past? It's a question historians still debate, as the lives of the working poor are so rarely documented. Your newfound confidence leads you to an even bolder experiment. One evening, before your shift, you walk into a tavern, not a rough place like the Hog's Head, but a slightly more respectable establishment, one frequented by craftsmen and clerks. You are clean, dressed in your new clothes. You order a pint of good ale, not the watery small beer you're used to. You sit in a corner, observing. The men are laughing, arguing about the price of wool, complaining about the city council. They are living in the world. You are just a visitor. A man at the next table nods a greeting to you. You nod back, your heart hammering. It's a normal, human interaction. But then, the tavern keeper's dog, a scruffy terrier, wanders over. It sniffs at your boots, your work boots, which you did try to clean but could never truly purify. The dog stops, whines, and then starts barking frantically at your feet. The men at the next table turn and look. The tavern keeper comes over. What's gotten into you? Then he asks. Then he looks down at your boots. His eyes narrow. He may not know what the smell is exactly, but he knows it's something foul, something out of place. I think it's time you finished your drink and left, friend, he says, his voice low and firm. The moment is utterly humiliating. You have been betrayed by a dog's nose. You down your ale, your face burning, and walk out of the tavern, the sound of muffled laughter following you. The experience is a crushing blow. It teaches you a hard lesson about what your money can and cannot buy. It can buy you a pie. It can buy you a shirt. It can even buy you a pint of ale. But it can't buy you a new history. It can't erase the stench that is your signature, the invisible mark of your trade. You arrive at the alley for work that night feeling dejected. You had a pocket full of money, but you are as much of an outcast as ever. You realize that your escape, if it is to happen at all, cannot be found in London. You cannot simply buy your way into this society. Your only hope is to accumulate enough wealth to disappear completely to buy a piece of land far away, in a village where no one has ever heard the term Gong Farmer, and start a new life from scratch. The dream is no longer about fitting in. The dream is about getting out, and it will require every shilling you can possibly earn. The dream of escape solidifies into a desperate, driving ambition. Every shilling you earn is no longer just a coin, it's a brick in the foundation of your future. A future far away from the stinking alleys of London. But this ambition forces you to confront a new, more complicated problem of family. You are young. The thought of marriage, of having children, is a natural one. But for a Gong Farmer, it's a hope fraught with peril. What kind of life could you offer a wife? What future would your children have? You see the answer every night in Arthur. He is older, and you learn in bits and pieces of rare conversation that he has a wife and a daughter. He speaks of them with a mixture of love and deep, abiding guilt. His daughter is approaching a marriageable age, but his profession hangs over her like a dark cloud. No respectable man will have her. He confides in you one night, his voice raspy over a fit of coughing. They know what her father does. They know where the dowry money comes from. It's tainted. He's saving every penny he can to provide her with a large dowry, hoping a substantial sum of money will be enough to overcome the social stigma. He's literally coughing his life away to buy his daughter a chance at a normal life. A life he can never have. His situation is a stark warning. The stain of your profession isn't just on you, it's hereditary. It's a brand you pass on to your children. The social implications for the family of a Gong Farmer are a fascinating and tragic area of social history. While records are scarce, it's logical to assume that the entire family unit would have been ostracized. The wife would be shunned at the market, the children bullied at school if they were lucky enough to attend one. The family would likely live in the same isolated enclaves as the worker himself, trapped in a gilded cage of high earnings and low status. This dilemma preys on your mind. You start to notice women as you move through the city on your nocturnal errands. You see a servant girl laughing with a watchman, a baker's daughter closing up her father's shop. They exist in a world you can only observe from a distance, a world you can enter without polluting it. Then, you meet Mara. She's not a baker's daughter or a merchant's maid. She works in the Hog's Head, the same rough tavern where Silas holds court. She's a barmaid, a girl from the country trying to make her way in the city, just like you. She has a quick smile and eyes that have seen too much but haven't yet become hard. You start to make a point of arriving for your shift a few minutes early, just to buy a cup of small ale from her. At first, she treats you like any other customer with a swift efficiency that borders on indifference. She knows you're one of Silas's crew. The smell, even before a shift, is a giveaway. But you are different from the other rough men who frequent the tavern. You are quiet. You are polite. You always have clean coin. You never try to grab her arm as she passes. You just sit, drink your ale, and watch. One evening, she brings you your cup and lingers for a moment. You're not from London, are you? She asks. No, you reply, surprised. Is it so obvious? You're too quiet, she says with a small smile, and you don't complain about the ale. It's the beginning of a conversation. A real, two-way conversation. You learn her name. You learn she's from a village in Kent. She learns. Well, you are careful about what you let her learn. You tell her you do night work for Silas. You don't elaborate. She is smart enough not to ask for details. In a place like this, you don't pry into how a man earns his coin. Your brief, nightly conversations become the highlight of your grim existence. They are a small island of normalcy in a sea of filth. You start to feel a powerful affection for her. She represents a life you want but feel you can never have. This creates a terrible conflict within you. To pursue a relationship with her would be to condemn her to your world. She would become the Gong Farmer's wife. The whispers and the stares would follow her. Any children you had would be the Gong Farmer's brats. Your money could give them a comfortable home, but it would be a comfortable prison. The alternative is to continue alone, to save your money until you can escape, and then try to start a new life. But the thought of leaving, of never seeing her again, is a sharp pain in your chest. This personal turmoil was likely a common story for men in your profession. Did they marry within their own small, ostracized community, or did they, like you, fall for people outside of it? Creating impossible social dilemmas. Some historical evidence suggests that unclean trades tended to intermarry, creating closed-off dynasties of tanners, butchers, and, presumably, gong farmers. It was a practical solution to an intractable social problem. One night, after a particularly grueling job, you return to the alley, exhausted and covered in more filth than usual. Mary is outside the back of the tavern, throwing out a bucket of dirty water. She sees you, in your soul, horrific state. There is no hiding it. This is what you are. You expect her to recoil, to turn away in disgust. You brace yourself for the familiar look of revulsion. But she doesn't. She just looks at you, her expression unreadable in the pre-dawn light. She meets your eyes for a long moment. Then, she gives you a small, sad nod, turns, and goes back inside without a word. It wasn't disgust. It was pity, acceptance. You don't know. But it wasn't revulsion. And in that small, silent gesture, you feel a flicker of hope that is more dangerous and more precious than any gold coin you've ever found. You have been seen, truly seen, and not immediately rejected. And that changes everything. That silent, sad nod from Mary becomes the axis on which your world turns. It's a confirmation of what you do, and a non-rejection that feels like a form of acceptance. It emboldens you. The dream of escape is still there, a burning ember in the back of your mind. But now it has a new, terrifyingly hopeful complication. What if you didn't have to escape alone? Your pre-shift conversations with Mary become longer, more personal. You learn about her family in Kent, the small farm she grew up on. You tell her about your own vague ambitions to save up, to buy a piece of land, to be a farmer. You talk about fields and crops, a world away from the pits and alleys that define your reality. It's a shared dream, a common language that allows you to connect on a level beyond your present circumstances. You begin to spend your hard-earned shillings on her, not in grand gestures, but in small, meaningful ways. A ribbon for her hair, bought from a passing chapman, a sweet apple from a fruit seller's cart. These are tiny gifts, but they are declarations. Each one is a risk, an admission of your growing feelings. She accepts them with a shy smile that makes your heart ache. This tentative courtship is a delicate, dangerous dance. You are keenly aware of your station. You are a gong farmer. She is a barmaid. In the grand hierarchy of London, you are both near the bottom, but your profession puts you in a special, subterranean category of your own. You have more money than her, but far less social standing. It's a confusing and volatile mix. The idea of retirement for a gong farmer is a concept that fascinates historians. There are very few documented cases of what happened to these men when they grew too old or infirm to work. Did they simply fade into poverty? Did they become managers like Silas, or did some, like you hope to do, successfully cash out and disappear into a new life? The most likely path for a successful gong farmer was to invest in property. Land was the ultimate source of status and security. Owning a piece of England, no matter how small, was a way to scrub the urban filth from your identity. Your savings are growing. The pouch under your floorboard is now a small sack. You count it obsessively, calculating how much more you need. You work harder than ever, taking on extra jobs when they're available, pushing your aching body to its limits. The dream is no longer an abstract concept, it has a face, Mary's face. One evening, you gather all your courage. You find Mary as she's finishing her work. "Walk with me," you say, your voice barely a whisper. She hesitates for a moment, looking around the now empty common room of the tavern. Then she nods. You walk through the dark, quiet streets. A respectable distance between you. The air is filled with an unspoken tension. This is not one of your hurried, pre-shift chats. This is something more. You find a quiet spot on the embankment, overlooking the dark, swirling water of the Thames. The moon hangs overhead, casting a silver path on the river. I've saved money. You begin, your heart pounding. A lot of money. Enough to buy a small farm. In Kent, maybe, or somewhere far from here. You look at her. Her face is pale in the moonlight. I want to leave this life. You continue. I want to have a clean life. A real life. You pause, taking a deep breath. This is the moment of truth. I want you to come with me. The words hang in the air between you, fragile and immense. You have laid your entire dream, your entire future, at her feet. You have asked her to tie her fate to yours, to the fate of a man who makes his living in the filth of others. She is silent for a long time, her gaze fixed on the river. You can see the conflict in her eyes. It's the choice between the known and the unknown. The life she has now is hard and uncertain. But it is hers. The life you're offering is a dream. But it's a dream financed by a nightmare. She would be binding herself to your past, to the stigma that you carry. I know what you do, she says finally, her voice soft. I've always known. I see you when you come back in the morning. I smell it. You flinch, the familiar shame washing over you. But I also see you. She continues, turning to face you. I see how you are. You're not like the others. She takes a small step closer. Is it true about the farm? Every word you say, your voice thick with emotion. I can show you the money. We can leave. We can start over. No one will know what I was. I'll be a farmer. You'll be a farmer's wife. This was the ultimate gamble for a man like you. Your money was your only asset. It was the only tool you had to build a new identity. Some might argue that no amount of money could ever truly cleanse the stigma. Others might believe that in a new place, with a new name, a man's past could be buried. This is a debate that has no clear historical answer, as it depends entirely on individual circumstances and the fluid nature of social identity. Mary looks into your eyes, searching for something. You hold her gaze, trying to pour all of your desperate hope, all of your sincerity, into that look. Yes, she whispers, so quietly you can barely hear it. Yes, I will come with you. The relief that floods through you is so powerful it almost brings you to your knees. It's a dizzying, terrifying joy. You have a partner. You have a future. The dream of retirement is no longer a solitary fantasy. It's a shared plan. You don't touch. You don't embrace. The distance between you remains, a symbol of the social gulf you still have to cross. But you have a promise sealed in the moonlight, on the banks of the stinking Thames. Now, all you have to do is survive long enough to make it real. Your pact with Mary injects a new, frantic energy into your work. Every bucket you hold, every pit you empty, is a step closer to Kent, a step closer to a clean life. But just as your personal future seems to be brightening, a dark cloud begins to gather over London itself. It starts as whispers and rumors, carried by sailors and merchants from the continent, tales of a sickness, a great mortality, that is sweeping through Europe. At first, London feels safe, an island fortress protected by the sea. But the rumors grow more frequent, more specific. They talk of a swift, brutal illness that leaves its victims covered in dark, painful swellings, buboes, the bubonic plague. The city's authorities, the aldermen and the mayor, issue proclamations. They order public prayers. They command a general cleaning of the city's streets. Suddenly, the work of the rakers, the daytime street cleaners, intensifies. They are out in force, clearing the kennels and hauling away refuse with a newfound urgency. This puts a strange new pressure on your own profession. As the city becomes obsessed with cleanliness, the demand for your services increases. Homeowners who had been content to let their pits fill for years are now suddenly desperate to have them emptied, driven by the vague, miasmatic fear that foul smells breed disease. In a way, they're not wrong. While they didn't understand the role of fleas and rats, they correctly associated filth with sickness. Silas is inundated with work. The whole city's in a panic. He grumbles one night, looking over a list of potential jobs. They think a clean privy will save them from God's wrath. The pay for your work skyrockets. Fear is a powerful motivator, and people are willing to pay a premium to ease their minds. Your savings grow faster than ever before, but the work is more dangerous. You are working longer hours, in more pits, exposing yourself to the concentrated waste of a city that is growing increasingly sick. You begin to see the signs of the coming storm. The death bells of the city's churches, which once tolled only occasionally, now seem to ring constantly, a slow, steady, mournful rhythm that becomes the new soundtrack of London. You see more houses marked with a crude red cross and the words, "Lord have mercy upon us," the grim sign that the plague has taken root within. Coats, not unlike your own, begin to circulate during the day, but their purpose is far more grim, to collect the bodies of the dead. The Great Plague of London, while the most famous outbreak was in 1665, London experienced several major plague epidemics during the Tudor period, was a time of immense social breakdown and terror. It also placed an unprecedented focus on public sanitation. The role of the Gong Farmer, already essential, became critical. They were on the front lines of the city's desperate, misguided war against the miasma. One night, you are called to a house that is already marked with the Red Cross. The family who lived there has gone dead or fled. But the pit needs to be emptied as part of a city-ordered sanitation drive. Working in the shadow of that Red Cross is a terrifying experience. The air itself feels heavy with death. You, John, and Arthur work in near complete silence, your movements quick and tense. Silas stands guard, his face a grim mask. While in the pit, you find a small, wooden doll. It's a simple thing, crudely carved, but it's undeniably a child's toy. You think of the child who owned it, a child now likely dead. You are not just cleaning a pit, you are excavating a tomb. The filth is no longer just waste, it feels like the physical residue of death itself. The line between your job and the work of the body collectors feels unnerving thin. Arthur's cough gets worse. Every night, it seems to rack his body with more violence. Mary tells you that people are starting to avoid him in the street, not just because he's a gong farmer, but because his cough sounds too much like the plague lung that is one of the disease's symptoms. He is doubly cursed. You and Mary make plans to leave. You have enough money now. You can buy a small plot of land, a few animals. You can disappear before the plague tightens its grip on the city. You tell Silas you are quitting. You expect him to be angry, to try and stop you, but he just looks at you with his small, dark eyes, and you see a flicker of something you've never seen before: envy. "Good," he says, his voice a low rumble. "Get out while you can. This city is a death trap." He pays you your final wages. He even gives you a small share of the pot that has been accumulating, a few extra shillings for the road. "You were a good worker," he says. It's the closest thing to a heartfelt farewell you could ever expect from him. You say your goodbyes to John and Arthur. John gives you a firm, calloused handshake, a rare sign of affection. Arthur just nods, his face etched with a weary sadness. "Godspeed, lad," he coughs. "Live a clean life for us." You feel a pang of guilt, leaving them behind to face the coming storm. You are escaping, they are not, but your own survival, and Mary's, must come first. The night before you are set to leave, you lie awake in your small room, listening to the ceaseless ringing of the death bells. The plague is no longer a distant threat, it is here. It is breathing down the neck of the city. Your race against time is over. Tomorrow, you will flee the filth, the disease, and the darkness. Tomorrow, you will run towards the sunrise. Your last night in London is surreal. You and Mary have your meager belongings bundled and ready. You have the small sack of coins, the product of months of toil. That represents your future. All you have to do is wait for the morning gate to open, and you can walk away forever. But you can't sleep. The city, even in its sickness, calls to you one last time. You feel a strange compulsion to walk its streets, to say a final, silent goodbye to the place that has been your prison and your proving ground. You leave Mary sleeping soundly or pretending to unslip out into the night. The city is eerily quiet. The usual nocturnal sounds of revelry are gone, replaced by the ever-present tolling of the death bells and the distant trumble of the death carts on their grim rounds. The fear is a palpable thing, a fog that is thicker than the usual London smog. You find yourself walking a familiar route, the path you took so many times with Silas's cart. You pass the grand house of the wool merchant, its windows dark. You pass the inn where the weasel eye owner complained about the smell. You pass the tenement where you first rented a room. Each location is a landmark in your personal history, a station of the cross in your journey through this lower circle of hell. As you walk, a strange thought begins to form in your mind. It's a thought born of your impending escape, of the perspective that comes from knowing you are leaving it all behind. You and your crew, men like Arthur and John and even Silas. You weren't just shoveling filth for money. You were performing a vital, unseen function. You were the city's antibodies. Every pit you emptied was a potential breeding ground for disease that you had neutralized. Every barrel you hauled away was a measure of sickness removed from the heart of the city. You didn't do it for noble reasons. You did it for a shilling a night. You did it to survive, but the effect was the same. You were, in your own small, disgusting way, heroes, unsung, reviled, invisible heroes. This idea is so at odds with everything you've ever been taught, with every look of disgust you've ever received, that it makes you stop in your tracks. Could it be true? The historical perspective on this is complex. While Tudor sanitation efforts were based on the fraud miasma theory, their actions did have a positive, if accidental, impact. By removing vast quantities of human and animal waste, they were reducing the habitats for rats and the fleas that carried the plague bacillus. They were, without knowing it, fighting the right war for the wrong reasons. The Gong Farmers were the shock troops in this unwitting battle for public health. They were, quite literally, saving lives, even as they were shunned by the very people they were protecting. You think of Arthur, coughing his lungs out. He has likely shortened his own life significantly through his work. But how many other lives has he inadvertently lengthened by preventing the spread of dysentery, cholera, or typhoid from an overflowing cesspit? How many children were saved from fever because their street was a little cleaner, their home a little less foul? It's a staggering, paradoxical thought. The most despised man in London may have been among its most important guardians. You find yourself near the alley behind the Hog's Head. On a morbid impulse, you peer into the darkness, and you see them. It's Silas's cart, but it's not his crew. It's a different crew, a new group of desperate men he must have hired to replace you and the others who have fled or fallen sick. They are working on a job, their movements clumsy and uncertain. They are the next generation, the new recruits in this endless, stinking war. The work never stops. The city, even in the grip of plague, continues to produce its filth, and someone must be there to haul it away. You turn away, a profound sense of sober understanding settling over you. You are not just a man who got rich from a disgusting job. You were part of a system, a grotesque but necessary part of the machinery that allowed a city like London to exist. You didn't ask for honor or thanks, and you certainly never received it. But as you prepare to leave, you can finally see the true nature of what you did. You didn't just earn your escape, you performed a service. You paid your dues to the city, not just in sweat, but in shame, in health, in dignity. Your hands are dirty, but in a strange way, your conscience is clean. You head back to your room. The first rays of dawn beginning to light the eastern sky. The death bells are still ringing, but for the first time, you hear them not just as a sound of terror, but as a call to arms that you and your silent brothers answered every night. You enter the room to find Mary awake, her face anxious. "I was worried," she says. "I was just saying goodbye," you reply. You look out the small window at the waking city. You are done with it. You are leaving it to its fate. But you will lead it with a new sound. Secret pride. You were a Gong Farmer. And you helped keep London alive. The morning is grey and misty as you and Mary join the stream of people heading out of London through Aldgate. You are just two more figures in a quiet exodus of those with the means and foresight to flee the plague-stricken city. Carts are piled high with household goods well-to-do families ride on horseback. Their faces grim. You and Mary, with your small bundles, are inconspicuous, and for that, you are grateful. As you pass through the gate, you don't look back. The city of your torment and your salvation is behind you. Ahead lies the countryside, the promise of green fields and clean air. The journey to Kent is slow and arduous. You travel on foot, sleeping in barns or under the stars when the weather is clear. You avoid the larger towns, fearful that the plague might be spreading there too, or that city dwellers might be turned away. You are heading towards the region Mary calls home. Her descriptions of its quiet lanes and apple orchards a constant balm to your spirit. During the long days of walking, you see the world in a new light. You are no longer a creature of the night. The sun on your face, the smell of damp earth after a rain shower, the sound of birdsong, these simple things feel like profound luxuries. You are slowly, painstakingly, washing the city from your senses. You and Mary talk for hours, filling in the gaps of your lives. She tells you about the rhythm of the seasons on the farm, the planting and the harvest. You, in turn, tell her more about your life in London, sanitizing the grimmest details but being honest about the hardship and the isolation. You tell her about Arthur's coffin, John's silence. You tell her about the strange, silent brotherhood of the crew. You are building a shared history, weaving your two disparate paths into a single thread. After 2 weeks of travel, you arrive in the area where Mary grew up. It's a rolling landscape of small villages, patchwork fields, and dense woodlands. It feels like another world. With the help of Mary's local knowledge, you find what you've been dreaming of: a small, neglected farmstead for sale. It's a modest cottage with a leaky thatched roof, a sway-backed barn, and a few acres of overgrown fields. The owner, an old farmer looking to move in with his married daughter in the next village, who's eager to sell. Now comes the most terrifying and exhilarating moment of your life. You meet with him in a local alehouse. You, a man who once cleaned privies for a living, are about to become a landowner. You negotiate a price, your heart in your throat. Then you reach into your sack and begin to count out the coins, the shillings, the sixpences, and finally, the precious gold sovereigns you have accumulated. The farmer's eyes widen as he sees the sheer amount of money. It's a small fortune in this rural community. The source of this wealth is a question that hangs in the air, but it remains unasked. In the countryside, a man with gold is a man with gold. His past is his own business. Here, your money is finally able to do what it could never do in London: buy you a new beginning. The transition from Gong Farmer to actual farmer is not an easy one. The work is still back-breaking, but it's a different kind of labor. You are not fighting against filth and decay, you are working with the earth, with the seasons, with the cycle of growth and life. Instead of the stench of the pit, you smell the rich scent of newly turned soil. You learn to plow a straight furrow, to mend a fence, to thatch a roof. Mary, in her element, teaches you the names of the wildflowers and the best way to milk your one cow. You work from sunrise to sunset, falling into bed each night with a clean exhaustion, your body tired but your spirit content. You are no longer a creature of the night. You are a man of the sun. As time passes, You slowly integrate into the local community. You are known as a quiet, hard-working man. Your past in London is a vague, distant story. You were a labourer. You saved your money. You came here to start a new life. No one questions it. The stench of London has finally faded, replaced by the honest smell of hay and wood smoke. You watch the city's slow transformation from a distance. Through news brought by travelling merchants, you hear of the rise of new ideas in sanitation. Men like Sir John Harrington, a godson of Queen Elizabeth I, had already invented a flushing toilet. The Ajax, though it was seen as a novelty, a toy for the rich, the concept of a city-wide sewer system, a network of underground pipes to carry waste away, was still centuries in the future. But the seeds of that idea were being planted. The profession of the gong farmer would continue for a long time, a necessary evil until technology and civil engineering finally rendered it obsolete. But you can see the end of its era from your remote vantage point. You were part of a gruesome, but temporary, chapter in the story of civilization. A chapter that, for you, is now closed. You realize that the world you inhabited, the dark, stinking, and strangely lucrative world of the Tudor Gong Farmer, is vanishing. The city is changing. The future will have new problems, new solutions, and new, unimaginable professions. Your time, your trade, is becoming a thing of the past, a historical footnote. Years pass. The farm thrives under your hard work and Mary's guidance. The leaky roof is ray-thatched, the fields are cleared and fertile, and the barn houses a small but healthy flock of sheep in to milk cows. You have 2 children, a boy with your quiet determination and a girl with Mary's quick smile. They know nothing of Cespedes or the alleys of London. Their world is one of green fields, open skies, and the changing seasons. You are no longer the thin, desperate youth who stumbled into the hogshead. Your body is lean and strong from farm work. Your hands are calloused, but from the handles of a plough, not a shovel. The city seems like a dream, a house-remembered nightmare from another man's life. But sometimes, on a clear, cold night, when the moon is full and bright, the past comes back to you. You'll step outside the cottage, check on the animals, and the quality of the moonlight on the frosted fields will transport you. In those moments, you are back in the stinking courtyards of London. You can almost feel the phantom weight of the safety rope around your chest. Hear the squeak of the pulley and Silas's low grunt of command. You can smell the ghost of the pit, a scent so deeply ingrained in your memory that no amount of clean country air can ever truly erase it. You look at your hands, clean in the moonlight, and you remember them caked in filth. You look at your children, sleeping peacefully in their beds, and you think of the grim, alternate future they might have had as the offspring of a reviled nightman. You think of Arthur, and you wonder how long his cough-wrecked body held out against the plague. You think of John, the silent workhorse, and hope he found some measure of peace. And you think of Silas, the grim master of his foul domain, and you wonder if he too was eventually consumed by the city he served. These moments are not filled with regret, but with a profound, almost dizzying sense of gratitude. Your past is not a source of shame anymore. It's the dark, fertile soil from which your new life has grown. The disgusting, dangerous work you did is the reason your children can breathe clean air. The money you earned in the filth is what bought their freedom. Historians would one day rediscover your profession. They would read the old city ordinances, the court records, the passing mentions in diaries. They would piece together the story of the gong farmers or gong farmeress, and debate their social standing, their income, their role in public health. They would treat you as a historical curiosity, a fascinating, grotesque footnote in the story of a city. They might even romanticize your trade, focusing on the high pay and the black gold treasure hunting. But they could never truly know. They could never know the feeling of the rope lowering you into the blackness, the suffocating stench, the terror of the damp, the silent camaraderie of the crew, the sting of a stranger's contempt, or the profound relief of the rising sun. You are one of the last living repositories of that forgotten knowledge. a silent witness to a world that has vanished. One evening, your son, who is learning to read, asks you about London. His teacher has told him it's the greatest city in the kingdom, a place of kings and palaces. Did you ever see the king, father, he asks, his eyes wide with wonder. You smile and shake your head. No, son, you say, I never saw the king. But I worked in his tower once. You don't elaborate. You let the statement hang there, a small, mysterious piece of his father's past. Your life has come full circle. You began as a farmer's boy with dreams of the city's gold. You found that gold in the most unlikely and disgusting of places. And now, you have used that gold to become a farmer once more. You have completed your journey through the underworld and emerged into the light, forever changed, forever marked by the memory of what you had to do to survive. You stand under the vast, starry sky, a free man on your own land. The moon shines down, the same moon that once lit your way to the lay stall. You take a deep breath of the clean, cold air. The ghosts of London are quiet tonight. You are home. The world around you seems to soften and blur at the edges. The crisp details of the farmstead dissolving into the gentle fabric of a dream. The cool night air on your skin becomes the light weight of a blanket, and the distant hoot of an owl is a soothing, rhythmic sound pulling you deeper into slumber. You can feel the sturdy floor of the cottage beneath your feet giving way to the soft, yielding mattress of your own bed. The story of the Gong Farmer, with its stench and its struggle, fades like the last wisps of smoke from a dying fire, leaving behind only a quiet sense of peace. You are no longer in the past, no longer burdened by the weight of secrets and shillings. You are here. Now, safe in the quiet harbor of your own room. The journey is over. The toil is done. The anxieties of that long ago life have melted away, replaced by profound and heavy stillness. Let the gentle tide of sleep carry you now, out into a calm and silent sea. There are no pits to be emptied, no deadlines to be met, only the long, uninterrupted expanse of a peaceful night's rest ahead of you. Drift now, and let go. The end of the article. Good night.